I
But at
mean,
the
yeah,
same time, like then there's some people that are like, it's offensive to use OCD in that way, and it's like I don't know about that. Like,
yeah, yeah. You're like, all right, we don't have to get fucking lib brain about it, but let's also like, let's just be a little bit more, I don't know, conscientious when we're using the phrase and the words, like to actually pair it with what it's supposed to mean. And it's not
yeah,
like an
exactly.
offensive thing. It's just like, let's just use the words to be in their most efficient way, if we can.
Yeah, well, and it's just like I don't like you just don't like little. Here, hold on, I'm plugging my shit in.
Damn, plug
You just
in the plug.
hitting up the plug.
Oh, whoa,
Um.
whoa, now we're loud. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's
Oh wait,
go.
really?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but you came up.
Whoa, wait. I want to try this really fast. So I'm loud right now, and then am I still loud right now? Am I still
Yeah,
loud?
you're still loud. Hmm.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened.
What in the fuck? Dude, this laptop's weird. All right, I thought maybe it was because I plugged my power cord in,
Hmm.
but who knows? Anyways,
It could be
um,
that. It could be that it operates on
what?
some lower level of power when it's not plugged in or something like
Well,
that.
it would kind of make sense, but then I unplugged it and it was still loud. But
It went
maybe,
back.
maybe it's like maybe there's a little bit of a half life to it or something. Anyways,
Hmm.
um, no, it's just
Well,
it's
I'm
one of
glad
those
you're here. I'm
things.
glad to hear you.
Well, totally. Anyway, so the point we were saying, just it's like, yeah, dude, you don't like little subtle, irritating things. I don't know that you need like a doctor's fucking, uh, prescription to identify, to like a doctor's
Yeah.
diagnosis to identify that. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, I feel
anyways,
like you only need like a real diagnosis for OCD if you're like one of the people that needs to flip a light switch like a certain number of times or do something in like some number of times in order to like stave off the end of the world or something. That's when it's like
yeah,
actual OCD.
yeah, when you're like monk pilled.
Yeah, dude. Fuck monk, dude. Holy shit. What a thing that was. He walking around with a little handkerchief in his pocket, wiping off like elevator buttons and shit.
Yeah, a little germaphobe.
Yeah,
I like,
dude.
it's kind of funny you said to like stave off the end of the world thing because I have like had sometimes I just have it cross my mind a little bit where I'm like, dude, what if like Satan showed up and was like, if you don't close this door perfectly quietly, the world will end, you know? And
Yeah,
like
well, that's what it.
that shit does cross my mind sometimes. And then you say that, and I'm like, dude, am I retarded? Like, am I
Well, I think the
OCD?
difference is like how much you allow it to actually affect your reality. I think like people have intrusive thoughts all the time, and I think that's one
You
thing
got
people
that right,
like.
brother.
I think people like people have a bad relationship with intrusive thoughts. Like I think that people think just because you're having like intrusive thoughts that you can't really trace where they're coming from or whatever, that's like that in itself is the problem. And it's like the problem is more so acting on like or like just fixating on intrusive thoughts. Like if you're up high on a building and you're near a ledge, you're probably going to have a thought that's like, what if I fell off of here, or what if I jumped off, or whatever. But like that doesn't mean you're crazy. That's just like one random thought pop in your head. And that's like probably most people have it. But if you sat there and you're like, man, but what if I did jump off of this thing? And you keep like, then that's where it's like having some sort of intrusive thought is actually a problem. Because I think all thoughts are kind of intrusive fundamentally. Like, I mean, I think the resting state of consciousness is not really having a lot of thoughts in your head. And so they're all kind of products of like our environment or just kind of you know products of overthinking or whatever, and so they're and fundamentally all thoughts can be kind of viewed as intrusive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to a certain extent, yeah. I mean,
I mean,
I
if
don't
the
know. Go ahead.
I was gonna say like if you're having intrusive thoughts or like maybe I should murder these people around me, then that's a different thing, I guess, but uh, like that's a problem for sure.
Well, I think it's definitely like I've had times where I remember years ago I went through a really bad breakup and I was like at the height of my drinking and I was like it was like the inside of my fucking brain was like broken glass where it was
Yeah.
like it was like actually scary to expose myself to like external stimuli
Hmm.
because any line of thought would so often lead to shit that was like really painful to think about. And I
Yeah.
remember I struggle with intrusive thoughts so motherfucking much, that like I like developed what felt like a phobia of like my own thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was fucked, right? And so then
Right.
obviously like that kind of creates like a cycle where you're like, okay, well, like, if I can just stay drunk, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
which
Stave them
like that,
off.
exactly, which like there's like a little truth to that, but then at the same time, it's also like being drunk makes you really emotional, and so that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't help.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like fighting fire with fire, really.
yeah, like it can work sometimes, but not really that effectively.
It can work
Um,
until you're like, coming down and you're like about to go to sleep by yourself or whatever, or like you're waking up in the morning and you're like still kind of drunk and it's kind of sad and melancholic and you start thinking, then it's like
right.
multiplies it even worse.
Honestly, I like kind of think that substances in general. I mean, I've never been like much of a druggie, so I don't. I mean, there's a whole other world of them that I can't really speak to experience wise. But like, I kind of feel like substances in general, like, are frequently used as a way of avoiding certain topics and thoughts,
Oh
but
yeah.
are generally not even from just a like you're hurting yourself, but just literally just as a tool, like really ineffective strategies for
Yeah.
avoiding things because it never actually really works all that much. And I've always smoked a lot of weed, and the whole thing with weed, and I think I heard Glenn Rockney put it really well one time, and I'm
Shout
not
out.
gonna, yeah, what up? I'm not going to put it in his exact words, but it was something to the effect of like, I think a lot of people think that weed makes you anxious and paranoid because like what it's actually doing is that you have like shit going on in your life that's unresolved that you're like not taking
Mm,
care of and not feeling good about, and weed will strip some shit away and like make you focus on that.
yeah, yeah.
And at times when I'm feeling really on top of everything and feeling good, weed will be a completely different drug. And then when I'm
Mm-hmm.
like in the fucking shoot and there's fucking shit hanging above my head, it's really pretty unpleasant. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
yeah,
think I think that's the same thing with psychedelics as well, because that's something that people deal with a lot too, with like mushrooms or acid or whatever. It's like,
mhm,
oh, I freak out, I have a bad trip or whatever. And a lot of times it's just because, yeah, they have things that they haven't worked out within their own psyche or within their own personal life and stuff that whenever they take this, hallucinogen, or, because weed is also hallucinogenic in a way, it's psychoactive in the same kind of capacity. And for
mhm,
some people more so, but and whenever you take something like that, it kind of puts you face to face, like you're saying. It removes some of those boundaries that you put up between yourself and how you're feeling, or between yourself and things in your life that you would rather not think about, or things in your life that you haven't really actually addressed properly, stuff like that. Whatever it is that's at the back of your mind that's kind of resting and simmering there, it kind of brings it to the surface, for better or for worse. And I think that it's about like, I think you can either shirk away from that and run away and be like, that's scary, it's like a lot, or you can be like, okay, this is actually something that has not a lot to do with the drug. It's actually like stuff that I have internally. So like if I'm smoking weed and I get a lot of anxiety, it's probably because I have anxiety about other things in my life, or I have general anxiety that I'm not addressing
exactly,
otherwise. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, as a quick side note, because you kind of like your audio stuttered a little bit there.
Oh.
Um, I like it's like really like distracting for me to have the podcast window up. So if you don't mind, just like kind of keeping taking a look at that because because I'm anxious and I'm worried we're gonna cut out like that
Oh,
time a couple times
I'm
ago.
seeing everything looks green, so we should be fine. I might have like, I don't know, bumped
Okay,
the mic or something weird like that.
I don't even think anything bad happened. It just reminded me to just say like if you don't mind monitoring that because whenever
Oh
I
yeah,
monitor it, it's always so fucking distracting. I just like I the
I keep it
squiggly
open.
lines. Okay, cool. I'm like a
Yeah.
baby. The squiggly lines are just spell binding. But no, no, I mean, you pretty much get it. That's like hitting the nail on the head. And honestly, an interesting example of this was I had someone that you actually met at my wedding and spent
Mm-hmm.
some time in the car with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he invited me to do an ayahuasca ritual. And basically ahead of like my child being born.
Yeah.
And I reflected on it quite a bit and I decided against it
Mm-hmm.
because and this is including, but kind of like building upon what you were saying, kind of going a little bit further. Like, I think that, um, I think that there's like a big capacity for like deconstruction and rebuilding that happens with hallucinogens, and I
Mm-hmm.
haven't really like experimented with them very much. I know that you definitely have, and I've done a little bit, right? Like I really poorly smoked DMT once, which basically doesn't count,
Yeah.
and then I've done mushrooms a few times, right?
Yeah.
So whatever. Um, and what was I gonna say? Just the idea of like it's stress testing
Mm-hmm.
it stress tests your brain a little bit, right?
Definitely.
And that can be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, like from my point of view, is just being like it's you know what it's like. It's like I've been playing a lot. I always play a lot of D&D, but I've been playing more D&D lately, which I'm pretty stoked about. And
Nice.
one thing in D&D is like, as you know, you'll be like, "Hey Slav, I want to climb this tree," and then I'll be like, "Okay, roll this die to see if you do it successfully, or if you fall and break your neck," right? And and a really good rule of thumb that I think a lot of people forget when you're playing that is like, if you don't want that character to fall and break their neck, or have the consequences of failing whatever it is that you're making them roll the die for, don't make them roll the die, right? If the chance of failure is not something that like you are willing to take the risk of, then simply don't do the thing. Don't call for the die to be rolled. And like that's kind of how I felt with the ayahuasca, as it was like, okay, like it might be really helpful in this like this generative thing for myself, but there is, and I think that this is always true with this stuff, and I think it's important to keep in mind, there is like a non-0% chance that this could like set me back a little bit and like kind of shake the foundation in some ways that I'm not expecting. And the fact that it's the timing right now is leading up to the birth of my first child, I'm just like, that's just not a gamble that I want to make right now, even though the potential payout, which is probably greater than the chances.
Oh, Slav, you cut out there. You're still out. Hold on.
These people are sick, I'm telling you, they're sick.
It looks like we're all set now, so we can pick up where we left off.
Okay, cool. Um, yeah, no. So basically, but you got my metaphor with D&D, right? Where it's just like if there's a chance of failure that you're not willing to accept, then just don't roll the dice,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
right? And that's basically where I'm at, right? Which is like I got invited to do the ayahuasca thing. I think that in a good and bad way, I think that psychedelics like are a stress test for your psyche.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those things of like, yeah, whatever I might gain from it, which could be great, and it could even be more likely that I would gain things and not lose, not lose ground. The fact is like this is just such a critical time right now, um, that I just like don't really want to like take the gamble at all, you
Yeah.
know. And so I'd rather just have like a stability. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
yeah, I feel
with
like that.
something like
I feel like that.
ayahuasca,
Yeah,
it just can be kind of upending, if you will, or it can kind of like be like an upheaval sometimes. And so it may be something that like it could take like a couple of sessions or a couple of months after an original session just to like get back to a good place. Like even if it's like it was ultimately positive, you may kind of just like dredge up some stuff that you have to just kind of deal with and work out mentally, emotionally, and stuff within your life. And then it might take a little bit of time for you to actually get that under wraps. Like it's not like just doing the ayahuasca is like it's a cure immediately for whatever. It's just gonna like kind of help you engage with that stuff. And so if maybe like, you take it and something comes up, it's like, even if it's good, it still might just kind of put you on like a un on level ground or something for the next couple months. So it's like, yeah, it might not be the best time to do that unless you're like in a traditional culture where like that's a commonplace thing, and then there's like a system built around that to where like, you know, there's elders in the community that can like help, you know, with whatever kind of stuff. I think it's a different thing, and just be like, yeah, I'll just take this mind altering substance that might completely change my worldview and stuff 2 months before my baby's born. That's kind of a big leap, you know.
No, exactly. Like it's just kind of one of these things of like dude, like you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Like maybe there's certain maladapted traits that I have that like aren't absolutely the best, and I could be living in better union with all things and with God, and you know, I could, you know, the house of my mind could be built with better struts and supports and things like that. But like this isn't like this isn't the time to now just pursue like a perfect mind. This is just like this is the time to just like settle with what I have and like
batten down the hatches.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. I mean, I'm the type of person where like I think that if it's something that you were interested in, you were seeking it out, or you're like, I feel like I need something before this baby, or like you feel like it would be something important, then I would say go for it. But if you feel like you're in a good place already, and you're like, you feel comfortable going into the birth of your child, well prepared, you feel like your heart's in a good place, you're feeling connected with your wife and your child, it's like, I don't know that you necessarily would need to do it. And yeah, you might could get some stuff to gain out of it, but it's like, yeah, I think it's totally fine to pass that up. And then if maybe down the line, you know, maybe down the line your kid's grown a little more, y'all are settled in or whatever, you feel like, oh, I'm at a point in my life where maybe I want some more connection to something, or I want some, you know, whatever, then maybe you could re-engage with that. But I think it's totally fine to be like, now it doesn't seem like the right time. It's either the perfect time or the worst time. You know what I mean? And it's hard to figure out what that would be. So it's like risk management. Let's just not deal with it.
No, exactly. And I did wrestle with it a little bit, because it was like, you know, this is going to be a really, it's interesting. I had this discussion with my sister and her partner, and,
do they do psychedelics or anything like that?
no, but they're definitely, I mean, given just, I'll just, you know, okay, here's the framing I'll give. They don't necessarily do that, but I was talking about it with them, and basically my framing was basically, do I do the fast and furious, quick, almost kind of spiritual get rich quick scheme of doing psychedelics right now? And I don't even necessarily, that's too harsh a way of putting it, right? Because I do see value in it potentially. Or do I do the slow and steady, slow trickle of no, literally of like just doing the work and like having my ass in church every week, and like meditating and like growing my relationship with God, and like reflecting on my upcoming parenthood and all of that. You know, fast drug use, slow religious tradition. And what I will say about them is I use the word partner, right? So they're not on the same page as far as the slow approach.
Right.
We'll just say that, right? Out of respect for them.
And they're open to the, you know, shifting of boundaries, so to speak, if you will.
Yeah, no, I mean we'll just say they're pro deconstruction, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm like talking to them, and they like started like really encouraging me to just be like, I actually think that'd be like a really good idea. I think that'd be like a really, really good idea. Yada yada yada. And again, it's just like it's like risk management. You know what I mean? Like, how much do you want to bet the farm? You know, don't invest money that you're not comfortable losing. You know? Yeah. And
what I would say is, I like the whole. First of all, the dichotomy of the slow back door versus like the fast trajectory right through the front door of the house, kind of. I like that. That's a good thing, because I think that's kind of what it is. I think a lot of times, I mean, depending on what you're going into it looking for and stuff, I think that a lot of people are like going to ayahuasca or a high level psychedelic experience, like mega dose of mushrooms or whatever, ketamine, whatever. People are going into that hoping to have almost like a conversion experience, if you will. They're hoping to go into that and have their moment where it's like, I'm seeing there's more behind the veil. I'm like connecting with some source that's outside of me. I'm
Yes.
this, I'm that. And I think there's a lot of utility for that. I think that even within the framework of a religious tradition, it can be paired with that in ways that are constructive and helpful. But I think that at the same time, I think that if you're someone, both ways are equally valid, I think, to an extent. I think that like just jumping headlong into like psychedelics and like I'm going to meet God, I think that's foolish and reckless and not the right approach. But I think that being in a place where you're like, I need something more, I want to connect with something, I'm not really sure how to do that quite yet, I think psychedelics can help with that. I think that it can help with deconstructing a lot of psychological mental issues and kind of help rebuilding those if you're doing the right proper work, and going into it that way. But I think that at the same time, I think that if you're someone who's already like having a baby, getting married, and having a conversion, religious conversion, all within like a year and a half, that's like an ayahuasca trip in itself. You know what I mean? Like you're going through all the work of what's happening in like that quick
Right.
blast of the, the conversion experience. You're kind of having that all as a living organic experience as you're going. And I think that that's equally as maybe even stronger way to build one's spirit. And I think that like having still an open mind to being able to try to like get into meditations and stuff like that, to where you can try to kind of still get to that ground of being and connect in that way. I think that is good, of course, within just a regular traditional spiritual practice. But I think that if you're doing all that and you're actually living in a day-to-day life, that's all that you need to do. You don't need some special key of ayahuasca. You don't need a key of whatever it is. You don't, if you're partaking in the day-to-day struggles of life, and you're going and you're trying to keep Christ in your heart, and you're trying to see Christ in all things, and you're trying to meet the other people around you at their level and see that
Right.
within them and respect that within them. And then if you're doing all that and you're trying to build up a family and you're seeing life through your child's eyes for the first times, and whatever that out-of-body experience that you're about to embark on, that is a huge psychological shifting in itself that like that drugs aren't even going to touch. So it's like you're getting, I think, a lot of this spiritual work done, if you will. It's almost like you're having your own remodeling that you've kind of had with your condo, but you're having this now in your own life with all of these new changes that are coming about. And I think that just by going day by day earnestly through the process of all of it, I think you're going to be just as fine, and you're going to get exactly what you would get, what you need to get, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. It's it kind of reminds me of like I think that for a lot of this kind of stuff, this idea of just being like, I'm just going to take these drugs, and it's like hitting a button on a vending machine, and then I'll get a profound experience spat back
Yeah.
out at me. I think that like people that just look at it like that are like a lot of the time, not always, but most of the time, just like not actually going to get anything meaningful back. Whereas like
Yeah.
people that approach it with strong metaphysics and are
Hmm.
like, I am open to these things, right? And like, I am thoughtful about these things,
Hmm.
um, are more likely to actually get something fucking workable out of
Right.
it. Um, and I think that kind of what you're talking about, it's like, dude, if I'm like totally dead and blind to all of the actually already existing profound and spiritual things that are happening in my life,
Yeah.
and I'm dead to that, and I'm just approaching it with this like consumerism brain of just being like, no, but I want to
Family.
consume something. Yeah, no, I want to consume something so that like then I can actually have the spiritual thing, as opposed to just like paying attention to my fucking life
Yeah.
around me, right?
Hmm.
It shows like a very like it shows a lack of like a holistic appreciation for this stuff,
Yeah.
and I think that that's probably a pretty important precondition for having any kind of meaningful experience with that stuff, drugs or not,
Hmm.
right? So,
Absolutely.
um, and then obviously, and this is a little bit of a side note, but um, I kind of imagine like the bad aspects of it, maybe not all the bad aspects, but the single biggest threat being that it's like you can have a good experience with that stuff, right? You can. You all like you can have a good experience with that stuff and like encounter God. That's for sure possible. You also can like definitely encounter shit that's bad.
Yeah.
And again, it's same kind of thing, but just different wording.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can have small, humble, little encounters with God every week.
Yeah, every second.
Every second, and then even just I say every week because it's like I think that's sacramental and
Oh,
like
yeah.
and like
Basing the
taking
liturgy.
and taking drugs would be like a kind of would be similar to a sacrament in that way, where it's like I'm going to
Yeah.
do a thing in this way that it's exceptional, as opposed to just taking a moment and praying or something like that, where you can be with him every time. Point is it's like, do I want to just kind of slow down and have it be slow progress over time, right? Or where I know that I'm engaging with God, or do I want to like have like open the chance for like a really intense and all at once encounter, but there's also like a really big possibility that I could like encounter like a demonic presence or something. And I like honestly have been thinking about that quite a bit, because I remember I listened to, I don't even remember what it was, like there's so many podcasts and videos online that look like they're like the biggest, most established and popular thing in the world, and you'll see it one time and then never encounter it ever again.
Yeah.
Forget who they are. But there was some podcast I listened to of dudes talking about, this guy wrote a book about modern paganism. And he basically talked about like the first thing that you need to fucking understand about this stuff is that like these gods are real, right? And that's like a mistake that a lot of Christians make, is that they're like, that shit's not real. And so like, LOL, just get absolutely fucking dunked on, right? And it's like, no, they are real, right? It's just that like in basically most cases, they're what you would refer to as either demons or angels, right? And like, but the thing is fucking real, and the power is there, and the way he was framing it was kind of like a call to just being like, so like, therefore you shouldn't necessarily be like complacent, right? This isn't just like some LARPy teenage girl thing, right? It's like, no, like there are effects that this can have. And I just think about that, I think about that. Like, I don't want to just be, and to be honest, part of that is like, that helps me both take the threat of that seriously, and it also helps me be more respectful towards friends and people I know that like do embrace that kind of stuff. And I want to be careful really fast by just saying like, it's not necessarily like I'm respecting someone who's like kind of worshiping in a way that like I am kind of compelled to like consider the wrong way, but it makes me at least like be optimistic for being like, well, like I think that there can be some of God's truth in what you're touching on here, and like maybe it's a stepping stone, and I can hope that you're kind of getting onto the right page here soon, right? Anyways, it is just like, do I want to open a door to the demonic? I think about, we watched The Exorcist not that long ago, and like, yeah, like I was listening to Art Bell on YouTube. And do you know who Art Bell is?
I don't think so.
Dude. Okay, so this is just the Glenn Rockney shout out cast. This is another thing that the Rare Candy guys turned me on to.
Art
Coast
Bell
to Coast. Yes, dude. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I was super late to this, and I've been really into it the last like 5 months. And he has his like one of his most popular series of episodes is with this priest Malachi Martin, and he was like an ex-Jesuit, but one of the good ones, and he goes into a bunch of the shit, right? And again, coast to coast, so it's like very macabre and conspiratorial and things like that. But he's talking about it, and yeah, it's like, dude, like, no, like exorcisms are really dangerous because you're opening yourself up to demons and the devil. And I just like
Yeah.
really think that people should look at hallucinogens that way.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of things you kind of opened up in there.
I
Number
know that was a
one,
lot.
I for sure believe angels and demons are real. I mean, I don't know that I believe in them in the same exact way as they've been depicted in Western, like, art and way that we conceptualize them. I think they're more kind of like kind of matrices of energy, or like maybe like plasma beings that are, but I think that they exist, and they have meaningful impact in that they do kind of engage with the material world, and kind of pass through. And I think that you can, through various different acts or whatever, I think you can actually converse or just kind of commune with them, if you will. And I think that that's like, I think when you start getting into that and like occultism and stuff like that, I think that's like an issue. I think that I think we've had a very, very sterilized, materialistic worldview in the West, even within the church, for a long time. And because of that, I think that like angels and demons and these kind of things have been very much so kind of purged from theology in a kind of meaningful way, at least for sure in Protestantism. And I think probably pretty meaningfully in Catholicism too, as compared to how it probably was in the, maybe earlier renditions of the church.
I feel like Catholics have been like peer pressured by Protestants into like
a lot of stuff, definitely
into a lot of stuff, and specifically suppressing and like not emphasizing the weird shit about Catholicism, which for the record is like some of the most appealing stuff.
Well, I think that's like, I mean, there's this whole thing that's like the flattening out of Christianity, basically, that's happened with like post-Reformation Protestantism, and like it's kind of like mirrors how capital kind of like flattening things out across like social and cultural boards outside of religion as well. And I think it's happened in Christianity, where it's like, obviously Protestantism is a very direct version of that, where it's like they took the crucifix away, they took just down to the bare cross, no Jesus on the cross, no imagery, no angels, no demons, just like words and a set of rules. It's not engaging with like the deeper kind of mysteries, if you will, which is like that comes from Catholicism, and they still kind of emphasize that, like the mysteries and that kind of thing. I think that's important. I think that is like a more mystical view of religion and spirituality is what is more in line with the actual real existing reality, I believe. And so I think that is like a way we need to move into. And I think if we did that, it would, or I think if the church did that, it would help to kind of contain some of this like movement towards paganism in a kind of meaningful way. I think of probably pretty substantially, like I think a lot of ways, like traditional church in the West it's kind of like almost like a ship is kind of almost sailed. Like I feel like it just feels like, I'm not sure that what we see as Christianity is the form we have it today is going to be like a significant lasting presence in order to really like bring people back. Now, I think that it could better weather that storm, not through capitulating to like fucking modernity and stuff, but through re-engaging with those mystical things within the tradition and kind of opening up that door to that, that other world that kind of lives inside of everything around us. And I think that would help engage with people in a way that would like interest them in the faith again, and help kind of like maybe just kind of help that transition, however it looks. And then also I think that like the taking ayahuasca can definitely open you up to a demonic thing. I think that there have been demonic ayahuasca cults that have kind of ultimately spurned into entire cultures. I think if you look at a bunch of stuff that they were doing in like the Mayan culture and stuff, it's like worshiping of snakes and like this like human sacrifice and all this kind of really like very dark, demented kind of stuff. And it's like spinning out of like this ayahuasca culture, that kind of thing. I think.
Oh, totally. Well, I think like there's like a lot of like relevance of like mushrooms in Gnosticism and
Yeah.
like especially in like Gnostic art. So like for sure.
But also in church, I mean, also in traditional Catholic churches, like in Europe, outside of the Gnostics, there's a lot of representation of mushrooms and just kind of general natural world stuff. But fundamentally, mushrooms. That was like a big line of thought in the 60s and the 70s. There was the mushroom and the sacred cross or something was like this big
Right.
thing where they're like, oh, actually, like Christianity is just a mushroom cult or something. I think all that's bullshit. I think there was definitely probably something with the early. Like I think that there are more mystical aspects of the religious tradition than we have present today, and some of those may have been to get people into um, altered states of consciousness that they wouldn't have experienced on a day-to-day basis. Now, whether that's just because, like, whether that's just theatrics with, like, you burn lots of incense, you have candles going, you create an atmosphere that's suggestive in that way. That is like one way that uh, that kind of obviously happens. That's like creating a little bit of a altered consciousness in a way, kind of making the ground ripe for this kind of experience. But I think there's also like, I think early, like John the Baptist, I think the early baptisms, I think they were basically drownings and like getting to the edge of drowning, and then you come back up and you have like a
Mm.
near death experience, and that is almost like a conversion experience that happens there. I think there have been lots of things. I think it's possible that the Eucharist early on, the wine that they may have used and stuff, was maybe not that, like, wine and traditional wine back then, it's not what we have wine now. It's just different herbal blends. So who knows what could have been? You never know. There may have been some use of psychedelics somewhere within early Christianity. I wouldn't be surprised, nor would I think it's heretical to say so. But to say that, like, oh, the whole thing is just like a mushroom cult, I think that's insane. But I think
Well, for
that
sure, and I think also you can see. I agree with you, and I think you can also see like where the stuff goes wrong, and it's usually pretty uniform across. Like, there is a common trait amongst the like psychonaut style cultural milieu, which always leads, not always, but like frequently leads people to just being like really, really heavily kind of like mind body dualist. This
yeah.
like really strong, this like really strong separation,
Mm-hmm.
and it gets people all fucking like simulation brained basically
Big
a lot
time.
of the
Yeah.
time. And I think when you see that, you're like, okay, I think that, and like that's consistent, and that's like consistent across like a lot of cultures and a lot of substances and
Mm-hmm.
religions. And
Yeah.
I think that when you see I think that's the canary in the coal mine where you go
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, like, and again, it's very Gnostic seeming, right? But it's not
Definitely.
just Gnosticism.
Yeah, it's some kind of weird, like, new proto Gnostic kind of thing where it's like it's almost like not just like a full denial of like the natural world and thinking that the flesh is evil and stuff, but just like a like yeah, the complete dualism and just being like simulation pilled, like the stuff around us just isn't real. And what you need is a spiritual tradition that grounds you in the real, and it grounds you in reality, but also gives you a connection to something greater through the natural world around you, through the interactions you have with people around you every day. Your spiritual tradition shouldn't just be, oh, now I get to live in my head all day long, or
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean? It's no, you need, if you're not, if your spiritual practice is not getting you to engage with the world around you in a more fulfilling way and a deeper way, then it's probably not a healthy spiritual practice. Because what it should be doing is it should be revealing to you the incarnation that's around us everywhere. Like, God poured himself out into the world to create it, and then it speaks to us. He shows us his majesty through the world, through things he's created. And that's how we, as material beings, are to engage with it. We are material beings, but we have a spiritual essence in us as well as everything around us. And so if you don't have a spiritual tradition that's working to bridge the gap in those things, if you have one that's instead cleaving the gap, I think that's a big, big problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally making you like maladjusted. You
Mm-hmm.
you exist in a spiritual space, and if like your like answer to that is to just like completely deny that, like there's a big difference between being like, I'm in the fucking desert and I am dying of thirst and wind is tearing at my skin and there's fucking scorpions everywhere, and I'm fucked, and I can find peace and solace and comfort in God.
Mm-hmm.
That's like very, very different than being like, I'm actually not even in this desert and like whatever, like none of this is even real. It's like, no, that's not good. That's actually
Mm-hmm.
not good. And if you like have a family and are like leading a community, you like probably want to like cultivate a population of people that don't deny the existence of the scorpions and the fucking
Yeah.
dust storms that are ripping your fucking skin apart. It's
And
okay,
people,
guys. It's all just illusory, anyways. It's all good. Doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Yeah, and you want people that aren't too good to get involved with it either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that that's another thing where it's like, even if it's like they're not denying that, it's they're like, oh well, I have my little safe little palace. I'm good. Everyone else that's in the desert, you're in the desert. And it's
Right.
like, I think there's something where it's like, well, I think that you're called to kind of engage with the desert. Like, I think that's what your spiritual practice is. Like, that's what Jesus would have, that's what his whole thing is. So, I mean, it's like you going out there, you have to suffer. You have to have a series of small deaths and rebirths. And that's what it's all about. Like, that's every day. There's small parts that are going to have to, you're going to go through trials and you're going to have things that are going to kill off little parts of you. And they're going to be bad things a lot of times. And it's going to make you a better person or whatever. Or it's going to kill off like some small, you know, egotistical thing that you have, or it's going to do whatever it is. It's going to, there are going to be a series of things where you're going to have to go out, you're going to have to suffer, you're going to have to deal with real problems, and you're going to have to engage with the world around you. And that's where all the work of spiritual practice is done, not in some, you know, life altering hallucinatory experience and then 1 second later you know the truth about everything. Even if you know the truth about everything or whatever, you feel like, guess what? Now the rest of your life is putting that truth into action. And that's where the real spiritual work is done. It's not about any moment. It's not about some what you do, you know, and when you're in prayer, it's not about all that. The prayer helps to get you there. It helps to get you into the mindset. It helps to bridge you and open up your eyes so that you can see the world as God sees it. But that's not the work. The work is in the everyday interactions you have with the world around you, the people that are in it. And that's like, if you're denying all that, or if you're just not engaging with it, then you're choosing to deny life. Really, you're choosing to deny what your role is as a person. Like, we're here to integrate, be fully integrated human beings. And if you're not engaging with the world around you and the people around you, then you're not integrating.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just a total bowing out. God, I had like a really good response, and then I just totally blanked on it, and I wonder if that means we should
We could move on.
We should specifically move on to the debate, because that's the creme de la creme of the topics. But God damn, this is driving me nuts. What was I going to say? Oh my God, this is horrible. Dude, this is like my first time podcasting ever. I'm a total
Dude, that was me last week, bro. I had that towards the end and it was a nightmare.
Well, this is the problem with like just smoking weed while we're recording.
Yeah, I had to swear off of doing that.
Yeah, I'm relearning the lesson all over again. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, just don't deny that shit and be
love the world.
Yeah, love the world. Be present with that shit.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just gonna say, like, to the point you were like making earlier, I am kind of just like riding the fucking wheel right now, just like going kind of wild, because I have been noticing like we're like getting closer and closer to baby's due date, and it's been like, I'm not gonna act like it's been constant and really intense the whole time or anything, but like there have been just like a lot of times where I'm just having these flare-ups and just these things pop up of just like reflecting on the past, reflecting specifically with like my own relationship with my parents, and just like really I don't even know, man, like just kind of taking inventory of stuff and thinking about, you know, I'm now going to be at where they were, and none of this is particularly incisive. It's all kind of common sense stuff, but just like, I'm kind of at the level that they were at when they were the masters of my reality.
Yeah.
And what does that mean for me to kind of know? You know, I'm still a person that doesn't have everything figured out, obviously, and I feel very fallible and things like that, and like also like a big thing of just kind of like the kind of modern mythology that people create about their own childhoods and about like the flawed natures of the parenting that they
absolutely
that they received. And
it's
just
gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. It is gonna happen. And like just this whole thing of just being like, it was all trauma. It was all trauma, and it was all horrible and abusive, as opposed to just being like, well, like life is just kind of like fucking complicated. And this is actually where I'm remembering what I was going to say. And I'll give, I'll give a common stoned Slav qualifier, which is, apologies if I've said this already, but this has been something that I've been reflecting on a lot lately as part of that kind of aforementioned, just these things coming up seemingly out of nowhere in the lead up to my child, which is, there was this Rad Femme Hitler post a couple months ago that really stuck with me, where she's basically talking about like, you actually want to marry like the golden retriever guy. You know, you don't want to marry the like really cool, you know, like kind of the cool and kind of standoffish person or yada yada. Like you like want to marry the dude that's like a dork and is like really is like really warm and enthusiastic about life, right?
Find you a crock pot. That's what you want to find. Slow and steady, keeps it warm, bro. Holds it all together.
Dude, you're appealing to my sensibilities. No, and that ties into a thing that I've thought about plenty more years ago, because I feel like this is a thought process that's a lot more common with like people when they're younger for obvious reasons, but just this idea of like what is actually cool. And my angle with it and my journey with it was a lot more like, I'm this naturally really enthusiastic, kind of upbeat, jokey person.
Hell yeah.
And that's good. That's a good way to be. But what ends up happening is I go out into the world and people that are not like that take a fucking shit on you.
Yeah.
And then make you feel like
you're wrong.
Like you're wrong. And it's really basic shit, right? Where it's like that is the obvious takeaway. Like the obvious takeaway is to be like, oh, well, I like shouldn't open myself up for this in a way that's just the same as that's very similar and as straightforward as if you just like backed into a sign and you're like, oh, I should like obviously look backwards more next time, right? But the tricky thing about it is that it's deeply spiritual, and so you need to kind of push back against that that rational explanation and embrace, and this is where the good old buddy Jesus comes in, embrace the fact that it's like, well, if I like continue to be this like the golden retriever guy, we'll just call it, because I think that's a funny way of putting it. If I like continue doing that, then like life is going to be painful.
Yes.
And it's a simple fact that like I will be harmed in that way because I'm allowing my neck to be placed on the chopping block.
But what a blessing is that?
Exactly. It's better to be that. It's better to have that and allow disappointment in life than to head it off at the pass and just live in a constant disappointment.
God, yes.
About the potential, right? And just like realizing, you know, like when I was in high school, and this is again, this kind of hearkening back to what I was saying a second ago about how I think this whole topic is obviously more of a younger person's thing, but it's evergreen in a certain point, right? Because I see it across age groups. And one of the observations I made a couple of years ago that I was talking to my wife about was like, I think old people that are like really, really jaded and overly crotchety and bitter are like, you need to respect them because they're our elders and we need to like care for them and show them basic respect. But also they're like indicating to me that they like failed the spiritual challenge.
Yes.
And like that's just the old person version of like being a mean cool kid, right? And I remember back to high school and trying to fit in. And again, like, I've noticed that everyone basically describes themselves as basically, yeah, I kind of hung out a little bit with a lot of different types of kids. And it's funny because that makes me just think that like maybe cliques in school actually just exist more in our minds than they actually do exist, because seemingly everyone describes themselves as like the social floater. And so like maybe that's more real than what we think the reality is. But point is I remember, you know, being basically like a little bit more of like the weird stoner kid that had inroads with more popular kids than, and a few of them being good friends, and doing this thing of basically like putting off hanging out with people that likely could have still been my friends to this day because they were like valuable and quality people, to hang out with people that were higher up on the hierarchy. And of course, you know, we're not beautiful, morally perfect people. And so like we do make mistakes like that. And we like can have a really good, valuable friend in the hand and throw them out for just a real complete piece of shit. Right. And with romantic partners too. Right.
God, yeah, dude. That's something I get. Like sometimes I'll get into a mode where like I'll be like, let me reminisce a little bit, and then I'll just think about like there were some times when I was in college and in high school where I had romantic partners that I just didn't cherish like I might should have, and then you know some kind of passed along for something better in my mind, and then come to find that like these are people that I'm still very, very, very close with today. That I'm like, oh man, like that was a really good person there in their heart, and like I feel bad about doing like, you know. So yeah, I definitely know these things, bro. Jesus.
Yeah, and like, and I remember having those experiences, right, where I'm like, okay, cool, I'm like at a high school party, hanging out with this group of friends, and always feeling really uncomfortable and out of place for a number of reasons, right? Because I'm fucking spurgy ass weird kid, and also because I'm sitting there and people that buy in a lot of the time, people that buy into the like air quotes like cool thing, right, have this air about them where they act like they're like on cough medicine. They act really sedate, and they like act like they're kind of like spiritually extinguished in some way.
Timothy Chalamet looking ass, like, dude. Literally, Lady Bird. I watched Lady Bird 2 days ago, for the first time ever, and it's like all of this is like all relevant to that movie. They show all that kind of stuff happening so beautifully in it, and but his character in that is like the cool kid. It's like he's like, you know, he's like looks like he's on some sort of cough medicine.
It looks like he's on Quaaludes, dude. Like,
yeah.
It's funny that you said that because, okay, first of all, Greta Gerwig had such a promising start to her directing with that movie. I really authentically like love that movie.
Yeah.
And then I feel like she just instantly fumbled the bag.
I mean, dude,
she directed Barbie.
Yeah, I didn't watch Lady Bird for the longest time because like I was like, it's just gonna be some gay shit. Like it's for sure gonna be some gay shit. Like she's fucking Little Women, fucking Barbie.
Yeah,
it's gonna be some gay shit.
About to be fucking some Little Women.
Yeah. But then I watched it and I was like, oh, this is a beautiful movie, and it's like God. But you talking about how like people view their whole childhood as trauma and all that. That was very relevant as a part of that film, as a theme.
Dude, that movie's counter to that statement. Right, the movie has a counter to it. Well, and it also the ending of the movie, which is like the haymaker against that, also doubles as just like really great Catholic propaganda.
Yeah, it made me cry, bro.
Dude, of course it makes you cry, dude. It's beautiful, and I love this idea of like coming around to understanding like the humanity of your parents and like and just the value of all that stuff is represented in like old classical era religious, but religion isn't necessarily the important thing, but just like classical traditions in architecture where she goes into the basilica, right? And that's such a great, it's not a very complicated and like high-minded necessarily metaphor, but it's really effective and it works really well on its value and you understand what's happening. And it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that scene where she's on her way to prom with those kids
Oh yeah.
is the perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
It literally comes to mind when I'm describing this thing.
Yeah.
I'm describing, quite literally, we like synced up there, where they're just like, oh, we're not even going, and they're like fucking weird and don't care about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes and hangs out with, and she in that situation makes the correct choice, which I
Right.
think most of us usually don't.
But
in
she
those
had made the
situations.
wrong choices before. Like, she had left her friend, who was her best friend, before in order to go hang out with like the cooler crowd or whatever. And then yeah, it gets that feeling, finds out, is having that moment where you're talking about, you find out like, oh, I'm in this scenario and it's like I'm not comfortable, blah blah. The reason why you're not comfortable is because it's not where you're supposed to be. It's just not where you're supposed to be.
Well, and I think so much of this is something I've talked about a decent amount with friends also. Is like, I think that so much of that stuff when you're a kid is you basically trying to force yourself into teaching yourself the wrong instinctual lessons.
Absolutely.
And just being like, why do I feel icky? And I know this is such an overused word, but like, why do I feel like unsafe and kind of uncozy in this situation? And I specifically remember that when I was younger, just around sex in general, because all of the experiences where you kind of start to like encounter the culture around it in secular society and your peers and stuff is usually like really degenerate and like not very moral. And like, and of course you don't have like the tool set to actually put that kind of a label on it.
Right.
And
you want to be, you don't want to be the kid that's like, hey, that's not moral how you all are doing that. And then it's
and also to just speak to like, this makes me feel really not cozy and kind of scared, is like a huge self-own that like people make fun of you for.
Definitely.
And to reference another movie, you know what movie in my mind, and in his opinion, this would be like, it just, the best reading of it is just whatever it is in your mind. The movie in my mind that does this feeling I'm describing better than anything I've ever seen is Blue Velvet. Like this idea of being a kid, being a young person, and then suddenly you're like in a space that you're not supposed to be in socially, with people and themes and powers that are much more mature than you. And it's really fucking scary. And it's like really fucking scary. And there's like a dark, sinister, like black magic, you know what I mean? Like being a little kid and like being at like maybe your friend's house or something, and you accidentally are just in the room with drunk adults that are like talking about sex or something, feels like straight up just like being in the presence of a warlock or something when you're a kid. No, and it makes me think of like the party scene in Blue Velvet. This is the shot that everybody always comes in their pants about, of like where Dennis Hopper has the scream where he's like, I'll fuck anything that moves, and he screams. And then it cuts to the next scene, but instead of just cutting to the next scene, it cuts all of the characters out of the scene. So for a couple of seconds, the room where the party is just empty, and then it instantly cuts to them all driving, like drinking alcohol while they're driving to like the bar or something. Yeah. And it's just like really scary. It's like really fucking scary, and like that's what being a kid experiencing that shit feels like. And I'm saying all of this, and I'm just further convincing myself that I'm never sending my kids to public school ever. Right. But the point is, reeling myself back here, that it's all about like just identifying, I'm like gonna be the like sunny, cheerful, optimistic guy. And I'm gonna identify, I mean, the real high level thing is to basically just identify that like cool doesn't actually exist. And like, if we want to talk about modern cultural and political aspect of it, like coolness has basically been like strangled. Right. Because like in a mold buggy-in sense, like coolness is also kind of just like a tool of power. And so I think people, and this is almost a side topic, but like people have kind of already identified that. And so there's such a power struggle for claiming what's cool that like it's broken the whole thing, right? We like rip the baby in half.
Yeah.
And
coolness was a power struggle, like, or was a more as a power tool for maintaining power and stuff before, like, outside of politics, like even within like in cliques in high school and stuff too. Like, coolness is it's always been a mechanism for power. Yeah,
exactly. And honestly, this is like an example of it in politics is like just explaining to any lib, like, you guys do need to know that, like, while like on paper for liberal democracy, this isn't supposed to matter, it like really does tangibly matter, and you need to like accept that like you guys have made it so that complaining and making jokes at the expense of Trump is like one of the fucking dorkiest, most embarrassing things you can culturally do. It's so deeply uncool, and that is like so profoundly politically important.
yeah.
And like there's so much power that exists in the fact that just like, no, you've made it so that you saying this thing makes you look like a fucking rube. Yeah. And that's really important. And the people, the people that are actually pulling the strings understand that. And that's why they've done a similar thing where like, if you talk about like, if you talk about like, oh, being triggered and like, oh, woke people, that's also really dorky now too. Cringe, and to be honest, like, yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah. All that shit's cringe.
All of it's cringe. Anyways, point is you should learn the lesson and not be overly naive and not be like a dupe, but like still like be the golden retriever person and like bring enthusiasm to it, because like coolness doesn't exist. And if it
does, it sucks, dude.
No, well, now's the other thing I was going to say is like, I had times where I like really muted and suppressed myself in that way. And then I just take away the ability to actually like enjoy anything. Right. Like I've definitely had situations where I was like dating, I was like, you know, seeing a woman or something like that. And I'm like, okay, like don't screw yourself over. Just like play it cool. And to do that, I need to like stop thinking about it and to convince myself that I don't care as much as I do. And then like once like anything actually happens there, I always feel that I actually just like eradicated my capacity to even care once it actually came out. Yeah, you know, as opposed to just being like, no, like let yourself do this. Don't be fucking creepy and like write this person an essay after the first date or something. But like no, like lean into the excitement, because like that's like, what the fuck are you gonna do otherwise? You know, and I yeah, I don't know. I've in adult life, we were just talking about this yesterday. There was somebody we know who was kind of like this, and it's like, it seems alien to me because I don't spend any time around these kinds of people. But like when you actually still encounter people that are like that, where it's just this like, I'm really gonna do this. I'm gonna do the Timothy Chalamet fucking I'm on ketamine face. Yeah. Right. It like, I don't even know how to read that anymore, because you seem like a fucking skinwalker when you do that, right? It's like, bro, like I have like a survival instinct that's basically telling me to like stay away from you. And I'm gonna like interact with the people that have good enough manners to like laugh at jokes that maybe they don't find super funny, or like that smile and like try to like engage with people, even though like, you know, ask people questions even if you don't fucking care about the answer. Because it's generous.
God, that's why all my friends are autistic, dude. Because I'll just let people talk, and I'll just listen to them, ask them how they're. So I've just let, over years, just have like different spurges have come into my life, and I've just been a soundboard for them, and I've enjoyed it. And now it's just like, those are some of my best friends. And so it's it's like, that's what you gotta. It's about presence to me. It's about like mirroring for other people, right? It's like, I want to be there for you. I want to let you be you. And I want to enjoy it for what it is, not for what I get out of it, not for how it makes me feel, but for the fact that that's who you are. Like that's what your essence is. If you're living in your fullness and you're actually owning yourself, like the shadow and who you are and everything, and you're coming with that, you're fully present. You're not off in some other way. You're not trying to be some other way. You're right there with me. And that's what I'm looking for with people, right? And that's when you feel a real connection. It's like, you're not like the Timothy Chalamet ketamine face. Where are you? If I'm right there talking to you and that's going on, where are you? Because you're not with me right here. You're trying to be behind a layer of coolness. You're trying to be distant. I want you right here. And that's like all the best people are there with you. They're going to be right there with you. And I think that's like what we need is earnesty. Like we need people to be earnestly engaging with life around them. And that means loving people for what, like, for their true, like, essence, not for them being, oh, they're like kind of annoying or whatever, or they talk about this thing I don't care about too much or whatever. They love that thing. And so like it's beautiful when they're talking about it. And you know, there's things like that.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to be doing.
Enthusiasm is where like actual coolness comes from.
Yeah.
And I remember I definitely had times where I suppressed my enthusiasm because again, it's just like what I'm doing is I'm popping my head up like a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
To be like, hey guys, look, I'm happy about this thing and I find joy and beauty in this. And like when you pop your head up, that's where you can actually like feel the sun. You know, but also that's where like you can get your head bonked by a hammer, right? And cool people are like really frequently like really boring, and they don't share a lot of the time, and will err on the side of less sharing, so that like they don't create openings to out themselves as like as a fool or something. But it also just means that like you're not really getting a lot that is of interest out of them, and that like real coolness and magnetism comes from like just these weird little spurgs who like have this fiery passion about these random little hyper specific things, and like everyone is just wrapped around their finger about this one little thing that they're the king of. And that's always much cooler, you know. And I think that like the manosphere
it's killed like it's ruined
that like I've noticed that the most of the time when I encounter this trait, it's, well, first of all, the most common way that I encounter this is women who are on Instagram a lot, who are like kind of traditionally, I guess, attractive, cool girls, where women that are just unintelligent will act this way a lot, where they just like are like super just anhedonic acting. But short of that, the other most common thing I encounter with people that act like this is dudes that are kind of in like the macho manosphere thing. And it's like kind of beta, honestly, because it's one of those things of just being like, no, like, again, like you walk into church, you see Christ up on the cross, and it's a constant reminder, right? And this was my ultimate point that I was leading to, which is, no, you need to identify the correct way of living is to embrace the fact that the pain is going to be there, right? And the incorrect way is to apply that like logical, rational, I'm going to learn my lesson from this input that I learned, and avoid all of the suffering and the pain. And it's like, no, love the suffering and the pain, embrace that, because it's a reminder that you're on the correct path, and that you're not letting yourself be emotionally and spiritually neutered by just like being this anhedonic Timothy Chalamet fucking high on cough syrup person who that's the other thing. The cognitive dissonance I felt as a kid hanging out with those kinds of people and just being like, they get something that I don't get, was so deeply uncomfortable, because then you realize years later that you were just gaslighting yourself, that you were like trying to convince yourself, and that what was actually happening is that those are just like low IQ fucking retards who are literally not even thinking about anything. Like that look on their face is not, at a certain point, it's not even affected. At a certain point, it's like, no, there is something extinguished in you. And so this is just like showing up. This is like what trans people do, right? Where you just show up and you're just like, what can I gain from this person who's just literally severed a part of themselves? And it's like, well, actually, that's kind of the opposite way of how you should be looking at that. You should be looking at these cool people and just be like, this is absolutely why I need to hang on to this thing as much as I possibly can. And it makes me think of COVID, right? Like, oh, we just need to survive at the expense of the souls and well-being of our children, and at the expense of our livelihoods and all these things. It's just mere existence. We need to make sure that 90-year-olds that are morbidly obese survive, and so therefore we're going to allow all the substance and essence of our society to be completely immolated just to pursue security. And that's spiritually suicidal.
Yeah. It's like a sterilization.
It is a sterilization.
With the COVID, it's a very literal sterilization, right? It's like against like an illness or whatever. But like the coolness thing is like a sterilization against like spirit or against the vulnerability or something like that. And I think that it's in vulnerable moments where you're able to deconstruct and rebuild. Those are the times when you have like very powerful things that occur. And that's where magic comes from. Vulnerability, whatever the fuck, geez.
Vulnerability. It's really fast. I'm like, the coffee is the Pied Piper's coming to pay with the coffee.
Yeah.
So give me 1 second. I'm about to shit my pants if I don't.
Yeah. So I was struggling to pronounce vulnerability as we paused it for you to use the restroom. But that was my main point really, is just like, I think that that's like the essence that's distilled of like the whole Christ message is like, you have to put yourself out there and be true and be earnest, and be vulnerable and open yourself up to, you might get, shot down. You might get hurt. People might make fun of you, whatever it is. But if you're being true and you're being true to yourself and you're like leading with love and that kind of thing, and you're kind of trying to fully embody that, that's what you're meant to be doing. And so if you are getting shut down, if you are finding, oh, I'm embarrassed here, my ego kind of died a little bit here, that's a good thing. And then having that little small death allows you to rebuild a healthier way. And so I think that's kind of like the whole Christ message, is open yourself up to those series of small deaths and embrace it. Embrace the rebuilding, embrace the becoming something else, because that's really what the whole practice is about. And that's like what life is about. You need to put yourself out there and be vulnerable to being hurt, be vulnerable for other people, and then give people a space where they feel comfortable to do the same with you. And when you're sharing that moment together, that's where magic happens. Like, that's why podcasts, I think, are big, because you get into the depths of the conversation, and at a certain point you're opening up with each other and you're being vulnerable, and you're having these moments where you're like sharing thoughts about something that you might not have really ever thought of before, or you're opening yourself up to another point of view. And I think in that, magic can happen. I think that's what's so beautiful with like jazz music and improvised music, is it's vulnerable connection that's happening in that moment. It might flop, but it might be something beautiful. And that right there is magic. And I think that like, that's where the truth comes from, is that it's not from hiding from that. It's not from putting up a cool facade. It's not from being a cool guy and avoiding it. It's not from being, so spiritually caught up in your own thoughts and stuff that you're avoiding life and you're avoiding any troublesome situations or whatever. It's not about denying the world and denying chance and risk. It's about embracing it and consecrating it towards a greater good. It's not that suffering and pain is an end of itself. But when it's consecrated towards a greater good, consecrated towards God, towards becoming more in line with his will, then it's something that's really, truly beautiful. And it's a tool that makes you a better person. So go out there and be fucking vulnerable with people, dude. Be true in your relationships. Be earnest with the people around you. Earnestly love them and look out for them and what they want, because like, that's really what it's all about. It's those moments of vulnerability. Here we go again. Fuck.
Dude, no, man, I embrace it. Dude, you're being vulnerable, so that's great.
Yeah, there we go.
Being vulnerable about being a fucking retard, am I
right? But I think that's why like someone like Theo Vaughn has had so much success and his podcast has blown up so much, because he's like retarded and everything or whatever. But
he's very sincere.
He is sincere and he's vulnerable, and he'll say shit that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you opened up about that or whatever, because that's nuts. But then that's what people connect with, because it's like, wow, I haven't heard someone be honest like that before. And people want honesty, even though we live in a lie, and you don't maybe think that honesty isn't any kind of currency. but living true really is a currency that people that are also in that same realm or on the path or whatever, and even people that aren't, are going to connect with that, and it's going to resonate with them deeply.
Yeah, and I think also, like, I think that there's a glut of pseudo vulnerability these days.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I think that people, I think a lot of the time, the more people talk about this thing in a performative way, the less they actually are able to do it. Like the whole like, I'm a fucking trans woman of color, yada yada, let's talk about our feelings fucking constantly thing is like honestly, you know what that is? That's kind of like the like, instead of actually having like a slow and thoughtful and plodding approach to life that leaves me receptive to spirituality or whatever you want to call it, I'm just going to force it by like taking a bunch of drugs. That's how that is with vulnerability, where people are just like, I just need to talk about it constantly and affect being a really sensitive person. And it's like, no, you're not being honest. You're not actually being honest. So
just be you. Be normal. Go out there and engage with people. Try to be your best. I mean, fuck, but like, also understand where you have shortcomings and don't try to act like you don't, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm a big proponent of being normal.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's like a cliche thing. It's like to be normal, whatever. But honestly, try to be normal. God, dude. It's like what makes society go around is when people are trying to like normal with each other. So please do it, just to make things go a little more smoothly around you. And but yeah, man, I think we were talking kind of about shutting down and kind of like being distant. We're talking about looking like you're on cough syrup or being kind of like zoning out and that kind of thing. And we just had the debate, and that's one big thing we've been talking about. And man, dude, that's one of the major takeaways. It's like Biden at long periods of time when he wasn't speaking, you could just look in his eyes and he's just zoned out. He looks spun out, like he's on like a bunch of drugs. Like he looks like he's on a bunch of psychedelics and he's just staring into the fucking void, dude.
Dude, he looked so cool.
he looked real cool.
He looked like an older Timothy Chalamet. You know?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, man. I mean, okay, so front loading my whole point here. The debate was shocking, and it wasn't shocking because anything that Biden did and anything that Trump did. It was really just shocking because the reaction to it, like the libs actually came out and like finally acknowledged the thing that everyone was talking about for the last 6 fucking years. And I think the thing is I mean, the only way that I'm actually shocked by that is just because I limit the amount that I imbibe their culture and the amount that I like interact with like shit libs in my real life. Mm-hmm. And so it's just kind of one of those, like, you just won't acknowledge that the sky is blue. So I'm like, I'm not really going to wait around for when you decide to acknowledge reality. And so because of that, I'm like not really up to date on what their whole priority list for things to actually acknowledge exist is.
You don't know their new update.
Exactly. I don't know how many literal years they are behind on reality.
I'm in libOS 6 right now.
And so it's wild. Like I can text it to you any second now. I Googled for effect. I Googled Joe Biden the day after the election, and every single article that came up, everything that came up was like New York Times articles, WAPO articles, MSNBC articles being like, he like needs to withdraw and like he's too old and like this is a crisis and like this can't be allowed to happen and yada yada yada. And it's just so interesting because, like, I don't know. My wife was just talking to her father the other day, and she mentioned, like, this was before the debate. This was like a month before the debate. Just mentioned, like, well, like Biden's just totally, I mean, he's totally just old and, pretty much senile at this point. And he's like, what? What do you mean? And she's like, what do you mean? And he was just like, he's completely fine. What are you even talking about?
What?
And it's just one of those things of like, yeah, like, Now that's a thing that does exist because it's been uploaded in the software.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'll acknowledge it.
I mean, it's a
And
frustrating
that's
thing.
shocking.
Yeah, it's shocking. It's the same thing with like COVID shit, where it's like, you know,
Yes.
2.5 years later, it's like, oh, it turns out actually ivermectin can be used for this, and like we've got Chris Cuomo on ivermectin for fucking long COVID. You know what I mean? It's like now there's like this thing where it's acting like, oh, this is something we're all learning together now. Oh, we just found out that Biden is fucking not there behind the eyes. You know, how could this be? There's no way we can let this happen. It's like, you let it happen in 2015, 16, 17, 18, 20. You've let it happen all the way to now. Like, the entire time Trump was in the presidency and you were, like, building him up as the fucking rival that's going to take the 2020 election, that whole time he's equally senile. He's been that this whole fucking time. He's never been sharp. It's not something we're all learning now.
Well, I don't know if he was... I don't know if he was equally senile. But
maybe not in 2017, 2018, but dude, 2021, 2020, he's been fucking half dead for at least half a decade.
Oh yeah, he's been gone. I'm sure it's just worse now.
And it is shocking that if that's like the best version of him, like if that's like if they're giving him the drugs or whatever, and they're like trying to prep him and stuff, that's the best that he can do. Because it's just like, I mean, it's. This is the whole thing, right? This is why I didn't watch the debate in the first place, is because I'm like, what the fuck am I going to learn from this? Nothing. Biden can't string together sentences. He's an old-ass motherfucker. He basically doesn't matter. He's almost nothing. He's just... They could have a cutout up there, and it would be equally the same thing as him. And then Trump is just Trump. He's sharp. He's mentally capable. He's gonna lie and over-exaggerate claims. He's gonna do his thing. He's gonna have just like a wrong-headedness about understanding a bunch of different things. But he's gonna be sharp and like what am I gonna take away from this that I'm gonna learn anything? Nothing, right? And so that's like the thing. I didn't watch it because that's what I expected. And then I go to work the next day, and my boss, who we all love here on this show, he's comes up to me and he's like, "So you watched that debate?" And I was like, no, I didn't. And he was like, oh, really?
I'm interested to hear what his take was.
Well, that's the thing. He goes, oh, well, I mean, you didn't really miss much. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, just disappointing, really. It's like, you really would have hoped that Biden would have come out just a little bit stronger on that. And I was like, first of all, no. Why would you think that I would hope that? Like, why are you assuming we're on the same page here about like, man, we just need Biden to get in there and do a good, strong showing? It's like, no, dude. And also, he was saying it's unsettling. He was like, it's so unsettling that this is what our options are, and like Biden's like at this state. And I was like, yeah, dude, that's what it's been though. What would be unsettling is if Biden came out and he was like limitless brain and like sharp and on it. That would be shocking and unsettling. What happened is just par for the course, and like I didn't need anything of it. And
I will give him a little bit of credit, like on its face, because you're giving some context, and you're totally right. Where it's like this again, this isn't old news, and so that in and of itself, that it took this long, is the most disturbing thing to me. But like he isn't wrong, right? Of just being like you watch it, and you see that this is the offer. And like there is actually like even from like the point of view of kind of being in the know, it's like there is something kind of unsettling about the fact that like this is just like what the machine is offering.
That's what it's pumped out. Yeah, this is what 2024 like software update has provided us with, and it seems just like, how is it this sloppy?
It's kind of crazy, actually. It makes me think of like when the Berlin Wall came down, like the West thought that like the Soviets were like super, super, super powerful still.
Oh yeah.
And like this huge credible threat. And then like people just like, you know, the neighbors come back into their backyard to see what's going on. And it's just like, it's just a nightmare. There's just there's just a fire in the corner, and there's like scrapped rusty cars everywhere. And you're just like, wait, what? Like, I thought my neighbor was rich.
There's like ripped up Adidas jumpers everywhere. You're like, what's going on?
Right, it's like empty vodka bottles.
But yeah, I mean, that was kind of my takeaway. I watched some clips afterwards because I was like, we're going to talk about it. I need to at least kind of have some knowledge of it.
Did you see the defeat Medicaid
Yeah, I mean, God, dude, of course I saw that. And the best part, and this is maybe kind of slightly surprising to me, but not really, was Trump. Trump was very patient the whole time. And
Yep.
in that whole scenario, he's just looking at him with what I can only describe as pity. Like, he's just like looking at him, he's like, let's let him finish. And where is he going with this? And then he finishes, and Trump's just like, yeah, you did beat Medicare. You beat it with a bat.
You beat it to death.
Or you beat it to death. Yeah, yeah.
So that's another interesting thing, right? So the last time they debated, Trump constantly interrupted him, and it made him look bad. And I'll just say, just to be fair, and I'll be the smartest guy, Reddit brain, both sides are bad thing. But like I found Trump to also be like thoroughly not exciting and compelling.
Yeah, he wasn't exciting. It definitely wasn't exciting as he usually is. But next to Biden, he's like night and day if we're talking about mental capabilities.
Oh yeah, well, and the big thing is, to your point, like he played it strategically pretty. I'm not going to say perfect because I don't know what perfect would look like, but he played it pretty close to perfect because the whole thing is what, like, it's literally fucking sad. Like it's funny, and it's like this is the case being made for like sustaining a system that I find is just so on borrowed time. It just needs to go. Yeah. And so, of course, I have some zeal that I'm bringing to this that makes me want to laugh at it. But at the end of the day, this is just like, this is a reminder of the fragility of life. And if like you don't see yourself in that, then like you're kind of, you've probably miscalibrated your capacity for empathy on a certain level, right? Yeah. Like, this is a fucking feeble old man. There's something in your nature that you're supposed to feel protective over that.
Like a child.
He's like a fucking child, exactly. He was
like a scared orphan half the time. He literally looks like confused like an orphan or something. Like he's lost.
Well, that was, and that was the other moment with Trump where he's like, where like Biden's just kind of trailing off. And again, it's kind of funny. And Trump's just like, because he's trying to reply to something he said. And he's like, I really don't know what he said there at the end there. I don't think he knows either. Yeah. And Biden just like kind of like just the blank. I think his mouth is agape because it was for a lot of the debate.
Oh yeah.
He like doesn't say anything to that. No. Like he's just told by another grown man that like he doesn't understand what he just said, and that he doesn't think he even understands what he just said. And it's like you don't respond to that.
Yeah. I think he just looked down. I think he just looked down. Like that would be a thing that happened to him. He'd be in the middle of a sentence and he would be like kind of sharp, and then you could tell he lost his train of thought, which I can relate with. It happens to me on here often, but he's doing that on a debate stage, and then in the middle of it, you can see him go from looking at the camera and like at the moderators to just like he just looks down and he's like, "Oh, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm saying now." And he tries to dig his way out of it. And it is sad, yeah. But Trump thing, I wrote that down.
That's kind of like if you were doing like a tryout for some like studio band or something, and you just fucked up the entire time.
Yeah.
Like the response wouldn't be like, "Oh man, when I'm like privately practicing, I sometimes mess up on like fretting too." It's like, no, like this is literally what you're hiring this person for. You know? Like they can't keep it. This is the whole job. This is the entire job. And so at the end of the day, I think Trump's strategy was basically like, just give him enough rope to hang himself, just let him get himself in trouble and talk. And he accomplished that. And that's what the entire thing is. And obviously the cope takeaway is basically, the real cope takeaway is people saying, because I've encountered it, people just saying Biden actually wasn't really that bad. And people are overstating it and doing like the funny shit lib thing where they like feign outrage and hatred for the media when the media just doesn't like
lie about him.
No, well, and when the media just doesn't like as viciously agree with their worldview as they'd like.
Yeah.
But really, the like normie narrative that is riddled with cope is just the whole like Biden seemed like he was demented and Trump lied the entire time.
Oh my God. That's what my boss, I forgot about that. My boss was like, I mean, you would have thought Biden could have had him because Trump just got up there and lied the whole time. And it's like, you'd think he'd call him on a couple of these lies. And I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know. And that's the thing too. I heard, Trump broke the fucking CNN fact checker 30 times. Some number, it's like, what are you talking about? What even is that? I'm sure he lied. I'm sure Biden lied. What are we talking about, dude? They're all lying.
No, and that's kind of the whole thing. Well, and also, like, keep in mind, like, Trump kind of, like, represents, like, whatever this kind of postmodern product is of just being, like, he is actively acting on the whole, like, he knows that we know that he knows that we know that they're all lying.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's a certain slippery, weird context that you need to keep in mind every time he does the, like, it was the greatest thing of all time.
Yeah.
There's actually never been anything as good as this example that I'm giving.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's the hyperbole thing, like, it's its own thing. It's kind of its own thing. And, like, I'm not...
It's almost tongue-in-cheek, kind of, in a way.
Yes, exactly. And, like, it's not an answer to fact checking. It's like a lateral move away from it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Honestly, it's the virgin facts and fact checking matter versus the Chad. What people think is cool is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, yeah, that's the answer there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's shocking because it felt like. I don't even know what the take mills are pumping out at this point because it's been a couple days and there is like a time dilation that happens when there's big news like this. But, they've probably dialectically progressed a bunch since then. But it was really shocking you just see the like 6 years of holding back, acknowledging the reality kind of burst forward all at once. And it was really fascinating. I'm going to literally Google it right now. Joe Biden.
Yeah. What are they saying now?
Right. Okay.
I've been seeing
in a staring contest with Democratic voters. Joe Biden hasn't blinked. Vanity Fair. Let's slow the rush to dump Joe. Guardian, Democratic governors reportedly waiting in wings after dire Biden debate. So they're still kind of chewing on this a little bit. But I think the big thing was Whitmer disputes reports she told Biden.
Oh, Whitmer. Jesus. Whitmer and Newsom, dude, waiting in the wings.
I know. Well, Whitmer is like a fucking Faustian bargain.
Yeah, definitely.
New poll shows impact of Biden's debate performance.
I've been seeing some crazy shit libs posting the craziest shit about it. Like, where is Pete Buttigieg in a cape when you need him? I literally saw that. I was like, dude, Pete Buttigieg is like hiding underneath a fucking siding, eating a block of cheese, bro, with his little mouse family. He's not coming into presidency. The fuck are you talking about?
Buttigieg is in his Honda Civic, putting on, like, wearing his Chuck E. Cheese outfit.
Yeah.
No, Pete Buttigieg is at like a FBI black site.
Yeah, definitely. Getting more gay shot into him.
Gay.
Shock aesthetic. No, I think my kind of like schizo totally attributing intentionality behind all this stuff and everything, and my conspiratorial streak here is gonna say that to the extent that this is calculated, they're maintaining the suspense so that the swap out has a bunch of gravity to it, and I think that probably will also help with just kind of like contributing to the state of exception that will be kind of like tapped into for why we need to swap him out and go another direction and everything. We need to kind of put a pause on our generally held expectations around this. Not that it will be illegal or anything, but I think that like
we gotta fortify it, make sure we get the right candidate in there.
Well, I think they're going to swap him out because it makes sense. Basically, two main things, right? One, it's a point so good that I need to take a sip before making it. One, they just they lied about this for the last several years, and so why? You know what I mean? Why let it out now?
Yeah.
Lie about it. Two, this is the earliest presidential debate in our country's history.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I mean, it's not like we've had. Honestly, it's not necessarily like we've had televised debates for that long, but it's the earliest one ever. Right? Why? Why would it be? Because again, it's a reality. I mean, if we're acknowledging that everyone is seeing the reality that he's infirm, right? Why would you wait to do it? I mean, are you trying to get it out of the way early so there's enough time for people to forget? Maybe.
I mean, I didn't really think about that, but I think that the early thing is I mean, I've been seeing, it's the earliest one. It's a little bit of why are they doing that? And I guess now, to me, it seems clearly so that they can, gauge the public response. And I think they know it's going to be bad. So they're let's get him out there early. Let's let him have his last little hurrah or whatever, get out there and try to get a couple quips out about how his son's not a loser and how Trump's a loser or whatever. Have a little fun there and there, but then also expose hey, this guy can't really be the right pick. And then create the desire and the demand to swap him out with someone, but give enough time for that to actually happen and not feel like a rushed process. It's I think that's the obvious takeaway.
Exactly. And so I think I think all the headlines being why doesn't everybody just slow down? And because then what happened is the next day, this is almost even funnier. The next day, just absolutely soul destroying levels of cope came out from the campaign itself, where Biden was there was a clip of him at a speech going I might not be as smooth a speaker or as well spoken or blah 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 as I used to be, but you know what I do? I tell the truth, and it's funny because it's literally him just being listen, I might have a really small dick and suck at sex and fucking
I try hard,
fucking ugly, but I'm nice. I'm a good guy. And, don't say this. Don't say this stuff out loud.
Yeah.
And then Obama comes out on Twitter and is
oh God,
everybody has a bad debate sometimes. I should know, right?
What?
And it's just guys, why are you doing this right now?
It feels they're coming out and admitting it tacitly, backhandedly, but also offering a friendship support so that's I can let you down easy kind of thing.
Well, and so then his campaign puts out a statement saying they have no intention of bowing out. And I think what's and that's what's framing most of the discourse now is that basically, and so I think basically what's happening is I think he will get swapped out. If he doesn't get swapped out, then I don't think that. And this wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world to get blown out of the water on, but I think that would totally blow just the idea that there's any kind of central planning for this out of the water. This has to be, if they don't swap him out, this has to be a totally dysfunctional faction-ridden party operating in just a retarded way. This literally just has to be no, it's just off the rails and they're not steering the ship adequately enough to even be able to do this.
And it's interesting because they say that about the Republicans.
Yeah, well, I think that's generally more accurate of the Republicans.
Right, but it's it's happening over here and to an extent it's Trump is, in a way, Trump is what the Republicans absolutely needed to bring some life into the party. I mean, it's not what they want. It's not the neocon they're looking for.
Trump is the evidence that was, and to an extent is still true, is that he completely took over the party, right? And there's still people that are how can this even exist?
But it seems they're doing a better, they've kind of rallied around him. I mean, there's obviously never Trumpers and stuff like that, but it's he's still the nominee for the vote. He's still it seems more. It seems it was dysfunctional, and then it's strong power comes in, and they're we need to actually kind of rally around this. We got to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, people came in and kissed the ring, and he kind of went around and did that. But Biden, what was I going to say? No, but at the end of the day, I do think that they swap him out. And I think that all of these articles coming out and the statement and everything is basically there to just like not shake confidence, you know? I don't necessarily think they're going to like manufacture a blameless reason for him to get out of the race. But like, I think that it's basically them just kind of being like, you know, it's like, you know, you go to a restaurant and your waiter shits his pants.
Yeah.
And like, they're going to get you a new waiter, but like, no, like the restaurant probably shouldn't come out and start just like instantly talking about how sorry they are that their waiter shit his pants explicitly. Like you should draw attention away from the pants shitting.
Yeah.
And then still just like, as people aren't focusing on the fact that you just copped to shitting your pants, then swap in a new fresh pants wearing waiter.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, and then therefore your confidence in, you know, the Mexican restaurant isn't shaken to the core.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening. I don't really know who they're going to swap in for him. People are saying, I guess people are saying what they're saying, Gavin Newsom
Whitmer.
or Michelle Obama. I think Whitmer's a pretty decent call. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that whole like kidnapping storyline with her makes me just assume that she's like, well,
oh yeah,
she's basically like aligned with the deep state.
Yeah.
As a specific point to her basic seat of power.
Yeah, that's like a cult ritual or something for like these people. It's like, you know what I mean? It's some sort of initiation ritual that she just performed with the fake fucking abduction story.
Right. And now, right. She's like the white female Jussie Smollett.
Yeah.
You know, the sacrificing of the chuds at the altar.
Yeah, I mean, that shit's so insane and so like debased and shit that like it to me, it seems like she's definitely in line with the deep state, obviously, like we're saying here. And it just makes it more sense. It's like, why not have her be the one? You know what I mean? It's like, that's how it just kind of seems like that's like the way the system works in a way. So it's like, just put her up there. Like Gavin Newsom, it's like, I guess it's the other guy. I mean, Michelle Obama, right? But I don't think she's going to do it. I think she's been vocal about not doing it. And then,
but what they do is they just go like, I know, but I need to step in for my friend.
Yeah.
My friend. Oh, Joe, we go way back. I remember afternoons, you know, and like, I got to step in, keep it in the family.
Dude, Michelle and Kamala girl bossing it up in there.
Yeah, exactly. A man and a woman in the office still.
Turn the White House into a DMV.
Big Mike.
Oh, man, dude. Yeah, so what, they would switch him out at the convention? Is that what would be?
I have no fucking clue. I don't.
It seems like that would be insane. Like that. I mean, I'm not saying that it won't happen. I think that it probably will happen, but it seems like it's just such a major step away from normalcy within the democratic system. It's like another point of departure where we were talking about a couple weeks ago, where it's like people's faith in a democratic system is already just hanging on by a fucking thread, it feels like. And to just have like, okay, no one voted for Joe Biden this year, but he's the president, so it's like he can run as the incumbent without being voted for. Okay, sure. But then to just switch him out for someone that absolutely no one voted for at any point in time at the DNC like convention, to just put in like, here's our made guy now, and then that's going to have to be who everyone's voting for, seems like it's just such a blatant exercise of how it actually functions that it seems like it's such a bad move for stability in the long run, if that makes sense.
I don't know. I mean, what is more damaging to the facade of liberal democracy? Telling everybody that they like need to just support the like unfit, senile old man who's just a smokescreen for unelected managers of democracy that are associated with him, or swapping him out for somebody at the end of the day who didn't go through the primary. Well, I guess he didn't go through a primary process either.
Yeah, but that was the whole thing. Is like he's the president. He did go through the primary process originally, so it's like
that's true, right? So right. So which is more anti-democratic? And I don't really know. I mean, again, like the position literally is like we need to support this corpse who's a smoke screen for all these unelected officials to save democracy. And it's like, yeah, I don't like.
I feel like that.
The cognitive dissonance has to have some effect on people.
Yeah, but I think people already, as much as we don't want to admit it, and as much as the presidency does seem like it's like this battle that everyone is involved in, and everyone does get involved in it, I think everyone also realizes that the presidency is like, it doesn't really, that person's not doing anything. And I think that's something that everyone kind of understands. It's like, that president's not, that individual is not like, he's not doing anything as that job. Like, it's about the machine he's putting around him. It's about his cabinet. It's about whatever. It's about, we've heard these talking points before. And I think that that's kind of something that's already working in people's brains at some subconscious level where it's like, I'm going to vote in Joe Biden, but it's like, it's not really about Joe Biden. It's like about like the Democrats. I want to get Democrats in there and like not Trump. I think that people at some level understand that the office of the presidency is important, but like the physical person that's in it, he's not really doing anything. So his mental capabilities are not so important. It's more about his allegiances and everything like that. And I think that's something that's almost tacitly like agreed upon and understood by most voters. Like, I don't think that you would, if you ask people that, I don't think they would agree with it, but I think that that's kind of a mechanism that's happening in the back of people's brains.
I think there's a certain extent to which that is explicit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are supporting a cabinet and a party, and I get that. It's different. There is a difference between going, you know, this is, the candidate isn't quite as important as the larger team associated with them. There's a difference between saying that and going, literally the executive branch, the individual in the executive seat of this one of three branches of government is simply just a factor we're just going to forego and just completely write off. That's fucking different, right? And I think that is, again, like, if I think that's a win at a certain point, right? If we want to kind of do the galaxy brain accelerationist thing a little bit, which I don't generally like to do, but like if we want to play that game, it's like it is a strong moment of like, the emperor has no fucking clothes. Like, you can give it reminds me of the money where your mouth is kind of stuff, right? Of like normies constantly just being like, God, we need another plague. God, I'm so sick of people. And then the second COVID happened, they're just like shrieking for 4 years straight.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of an example of that, right? Of just being like, whatever, right? Like, it's just the fucking corporations running everything. Like, president doesn't even matter anyways. And it's like, okay, the president's literally mentally gone. He's not, to be fair, that is overstating it, but like,
oh dude, he's gone for about 70% of the time. 30% of the time something like wakes up in him and kind of like strikes out.
It's hyperbole. Like, the real thing is just he's not, yeah, I mean, well, whatever. I mean, to the capacity that he needs to be fit for the job, no, he's gone.
It's like 93% of people are better public speakers than him.
Yeah, well, I'm just right. Yeah, it's a big, I think it can potentially be like a big, like, the emperor has no clothes moment, you know.
I think both, like, okay, either way it is, I think.
Yeah, well, I think it's a little bit different now, I guess, to my point, when there's actually like powerful media institutions pointing it out.
Oh yeah, well, I was just saying.
Now it actually becomes real.
I was saying if they replace him or if they don't replace him, either way, it's a moment of like. I think it's a moment of like the emperor has no clothes on, not just Joe Biden, but like the system fundamentally. I think it's like either way. I think it's a well, no, that's my point. That's
my point. That's my whole point. Is just like, you know, cope and seethe as much as you want, but like, this was the moment where everyone actually needed to have like rubber meet road as far as all the bold claims they make about like, well, whatever, the president like doesn't even matter all that much anyways. And it's like, yeah, it's like easy for you to say, but like now you really need to put it in practice. And everyone is like literally acknowledging that, like, we're just accepting that this guy is unfit, right? Like, we're actually putting our money where our mouth is. And that's the emperor has no clothes moment, right?
Yeah.
Less specific to the emperor himself. But
then if they switch him out, it's like, okay, well, this fucking democratic process is obviously bullshit, because this whole time they've been keeping people from running against Biden. Like, that was the whole thing. Like, they didn't hold primaries and a lot of things. That's why RFK got out of the party and moved over to go independent, is because they weren't hosting primaries, because they were like, Biden's the presumptive nominee. He's chosen it, and we're going to do that. So we don't need primaries for him because he's our guy. And then it's like, okay, so you get RFK out of there, he's running independent, or whoever else would have wanted to run against Biden, because there were other Democrats that kind of spoke about that before election season really began. And then now it's like, okay, he clearly isn't it. He doesn't work. We're going to just replace him with the people who we wanted anyways that might not have made it through the primary process. And so it's like, that is another moment where it's like, the whole, it brings into question the legitimacy of the whole system in a way that I think is like pretty damning for electoral democracy in a pretty major way. And it's really interesting. Like, it really is interesting, because it's like, you got people like my boss who, I don't know, in his brain, he's tacitly like, yeah, I mean, none of these people are the right option, blah, blah, blah. But then he comes into work the next day after this debate, and he's like, what are we going to do? And it's like, it made it more real for those people, for sure.
Yeah. Well, again, it's just, this is just one of the great, I'll say it again, just like the emperor has no clothes moments of just like, it is being let out now. People are actually acknowledging it now. And either way this goes, they keep him in, they take him out. There are just some like takeaways about the current state of the system. I mean, even just on the symbolic level of just like, this is the output that this like system on life support has given us. Yeah. And like, there is symbolic value in that. I'm like, that's a fair thing to notice. So yeah, anyways, I thought it was interesting. I accidentally texted the wrong group chat on my phone about the debate when I thought it was the boys chat. Oh, no. It was like a group chat with like the boys and also like a bunch of people's like family members and shit. And I said that Joe Biden had an ass voice and that he like looked dead. And it was really funny because like no one argued with me. I was like, oops, wrong chat, you know. And Jeez. But it was this, and I got like a little anxious at first, but then it's like, dude, like, well, I didn't really get anxious because I don't really give a fuck. But it was just this kind of thing of like, I like literally accidentally texted shit libs that would probably say something, and like there was no reaction, there was nothing, there was no fanfare from anybody. And
what can you say?
Again, like the emperor has no clothes. It's out. It's common knowledge now, and so. It's interesting. It is interesting. Who do you think they would run?
You're not going back to brunch. We're not going back to brunch. That's not happening.
Fuck. I don't know. Definitely not AOC. She's not old enough. But I think they probably run.
Really fast, can I just? This is an important question. How do we feel about brunch as a concept?
Brunch as a I like breakfast food a lot. So like at home, like if I'm on my weekends on Saturday, Sunday, I make like a fat breakfast, like eggs, bacon, waffle or pancake or biscuit, and then hash browns. So I'm into brunch like as like a physical thing, as like a set of meals. I'm into it.
What about a cultural phenomenon, COH?
It's like I can't afford brunch. That's like where I'm at. Like I can't go out and drink mimosas within whatever the fuck with my friends at some $30 a plate bullshit. Yeah, no.
Dude, that's like there's these places in Seattle, like Portage Bay, I think is one of them, and it's just like it disgusts me. It's a fucking feeding trough, and they have this like deconstructed style. It's a fucking open floor plan. Fucking.
Long tables and shit.
Long tables. There's a couple of those. I never sit at those.
Yeah.
And then just like meanwhile, just like the greasy spoon down the road that has like ugly waitresses and just like fat Mexicans in the kitchen is just like way better and like makes objectively way finer hollandaise and shit like that.
Yeah. I'm a diner guy. I'm not a brunch guy. I'm a diner, not brunch spot guy. Like you'll catch me at a place where people are like smoking cigarettes and reading newspapers and making food before you'll catch me at a place where they're like, here's our fucking small batch jelly with whatever. No, hell no, dude.
Yeah, dude, you're hanging out at the fucking Jim Jarmusch ass
Yeah,
fucking breakfast spots.
yeah. Yeah, we got a couple of breakfast spots around here that are like, the Waffle House. I don't know if y'all have them out there.
We
Uh,
straight up don't, but I get what you're saying.
kind of know the vibe of the Waffle House. Well, we don't really have a lot of them here in the Midwest either, but I grew up in the South with a lot of them around, and that's kind of like that's my vibe a little bit more. Like, I mean, obviously there's some stuff that's kind of gross in it and whatever, and like I don't like the fact that there's like crime that happens at Waffle Houses often or whatever. But I like the
Fucking
grittier,
racist.
kind of greasy fucking diner shit. I like that. It's an honest meal. It's not some bullshit. It's not some, menu printed on cardstock with some new fucking calligraphy on it or whatever. It's just a menu laminated, got some stains on it. It says,
Exactly.
we got eggs and we got fucking bacon. And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. So who do you expect them to replace him with?
God, I don't know. I think honestly Whitmer. I don't know. I think that might be too
Really?
insane, but just like I just think that it's like schizo. If I'm doing schizo analysis, it makes the most sense to me. But otherwise, like I think what would be like
I
the
mean, how many more
colloquial.
years does she have on her term?
I don't even know. I feel like that was when she did the governor kidnapping thing. That was 3 years ago. So I feel like she's got to be coming up.
Yeah, she assumed office in 2019.
So yeah, this is her. Oh, did she just get reelected then?
Yeah,
You get 4 years.
it's saying current term ends on 2020 in 2027.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if that is terribly. I'm not sure. I don't know what they would do. To me, it seems like so bizarre for them to switch him out that it's like hard for me to really wrap my brain around who. It seems that the only options are Michelle Obama, Gavin Newsom, and Whitmer is like my like fun surprise option, and because of that, I want to go with her. But like, I think the most sensible thing to do would be Michelle Obama. I think that the more like just like general neocon, like who's like kind of a rising star or whatever thing would be Gavin Newsom. He's not a rising star at all, but he's like just a guy. Like he's just like an ossified guy that people know his name.
Yeah, I mean, he's honestly, this is like what I would love to get the Rare Candy Boys to discuss. Like, he's a cultural phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Like I tend to think that like I think that the whole like just like the vilification of him as like some kind of supervillain, like he is like the antagonist of Rare Candy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's their villain,
I love
and
it.
it's funny, and he was kind of one of the villains of COVID, and I like wonder if that's totally great for him. You know what I mean? Like I wonder if he loves that and that's good. I like feel like Fauci didn't love that.
No.
And I feel like there's a lot of people in politics, especially libs, like the whole like fuck it man, let's just like make them suffer, and like maybe they want the guy who makes people seethe and dilate, you know what I mean?
God, man, what a fucking miserable turn of events that would be. I mean,
It
it's
would
just
be pretty miserable. He's pretty creepy.
yeah, hey, he looks terrifying. He's got darkness in the eyes that I can't really vibe with in a good way.
He's got a really creepy energy.
Yeah, we should definitely reach out to Rare Candy though and see if they'd want to come on to do like a Gavin Newsom deep dive because I'd love to hear their perspective on him, just like on a one-on-one kind of basis since they're dealing with his shit on a regular day to day.
Totally.
So maybe we reach out to them because it's been a while since we've had any guests or anything on anyhow. So they might be
It is.
a nice
Yeah.
little addition. But dude,
Yeah, I'll look into that. That's good. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I loaded up a bunch of stuff on the soundboard. Not to just go over right now, but I've got it up there. So that's just something I'm excited about it. It'll hopefully be making its debut here in the coming episodes and maybe even later in this one. But yeah, I spent a while you were like getting into the lobby and stuff when you were having audio issues. I was cutting up some of the files I've got and uploading them to the soundboard.
Hell yeah. Dude, this is our transformation into Shock Jock.
Yeah, big time. But yeah, I have. Let's see. As far as the debate notes, I've got only a couple more things. I I didn't watch a lot of it. I watched for a moment the real debate. That's what I like went to recently.
Oh man, I wanted
today,
to talk about that.
to like kind of see just what did it fucking look like? What was it? I might as well get RFK's take if I'm going on any of these issues.
It looked really goofy.
It was ramshackle. It was. I don't feel like it was a good. I mean, it was a good idea. I think conceptually, you're like, they didn't let him on the stage. He wants people to hear what he has to say. I think he's got good stuff to say about. I think he could handle them well in a debate. I think that he wants to get out in front of people and wants to be able to get his points heard. I think in that way, it's a very creative thing. It's using technology in a way that could be, a model for other people that are maybe independent candidates or whatever. But in practice, it was just kind of janky. Like it didn't really work well because they would have to pause it to let him interject, and then they would have to go over to him and like. I only watched the first response of his, but he just didn't do anything about the debate. Like they went over to him, and it was like he's supposed to fill in his answer about the question they asked for Trump and Biden, but instead he just like goes off on this like thing about how both of them are liars and they're not fit and this and that or whatever. Nothing to do with the question. And then the moderator was like, "Hey, you're supposed to be like answering these questions," and he was like, "Oh, okay. Well, do I have a rebuttal?" Like he just like it didn't seem like it was planned out or put together well, and it seemed clunky. And yeah, I mean, I just turned it off immediately. I was like, whatever, dude. So yeah, but I saw just the first couple of things. I saw them talking about abortion, and this was funny to me. I thought Trump was talking about abortion. He kept saying, "quote follow your heart." He was like, I mean, I believe in the exception for a woman's life or for rape or for incest. A lot of people don't. That's okay. Follow your heart on this issue. You have to follow your heart with abortion. My heart, I think that I agree with the exceptions. Maybe not you. Follow your heart. He said it like 4 times, which I thought was kind of a funny turn of phrase. I mean, it's true, but it's just kind of goofy.
Yeah, it is. Wait, remind me. You have to cut this part out because I totally spaced out for a second. Just like descended into the hole of being stoned for like the last.
Oh yeah, seconds. Biden on stage.
I know exactly. I'm like, dude, we beat Medicaid. Okay.
Man, I was just saying.
What was it about? Follow your heart? Because you were talking about
abortion. Yeah, about abortion. Trump was saying he agrees with the exceptions for rape or for incest or whatever, and he was like, a lot of people don't. A lot of people on my side, they don't. And that's okay. You gotta follow your heart. I'm listening to my heart. My heart says this. Follow your heart. But he just kept saying follow your heart, and I just thought it was goofy in the relation to this issue.
It makes me think of John Turturro in Miller's Crossing. Look into your heart, please. Yeah, no, RFK is a fucking that whole the real debate thing was like really dorky in a way that like is almost kind of likable.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, this is so just like like how many people just like had their divorced dad texting them links to that shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And just be like, dude, he's changing the fucking country. He's changing the game right now. And it's like, no, this is dorky. This is like a little fucking community theater event. He was just up on like a little black box theater soundstage. It's like him doing his little live stream from like Second City Improv, like, and the fact that they had him at a podium looking at a screen of them is, I think that I kind of agree with you. There may have been ways of executing on it that could have worked. But I think the way that they did it, especially, is just like, it was just kind of funny. Yeah, I don't know.
He's only pulled off 616,000 views on it so far, which is not great.
I thought like there were several million people that tuned into it.
Well, I don't know about I'm just looking at view numbers on the stream, and it says 616,000. This is the official NTD, which is like the thing that hosted it. I mean, that's terrible.
I'm pretty sure that more people watched it live. I guarantee. I'm pretty sure it was a few million.
Maybe on RFK's official page, he's got it, but
Yeah, well, I can't really speak to it, but yeah, I don't know. Well, and honestly, like a moment of appreciation, like that debate really was so bad. Like it does make the case for someone like RFK to seem
Oh,
a lot
dude.
stronger.
Yeah. I mean, for whatever it's worth. I mean, he's maybe just like a fail son. He's maybe also just kind of like a little bit of a grifter in a way, but maybe not really. Whatever all that is, he would have made the debate have more substance in one way or another. He would have brought at least some level of like cognitive ability that could have not really like rivaled Trump or whatever, but like could have just like allowed for some more fodder other than just like Trump is like capable person, Biden's retard. Like that, you know what I mean? It would have added a third dynamic. It would have added
Well,
something
well, one
else in
hundred
there.
percent. Because that was the thing. Is like I'm watching it with my wife, and it was like a let's just casually throw this on because I just remembered that it's on and we're
Mm-hmm.
sitting on the couch kind of thing. It was super low investment, and I put it on, and it's just like, bro, like after 20 minutes I tapped out, and then I basically just watched highlights. I couldn't really do it because that's the whole thing, is that there's not actually any substance happening. The entire debate, the entire point of the debate, all of the substance was just Joe Biden's not on the ball. That was the entire thing.
Yeah.
I don't need to watch for however long it was. I imagine it was like hour and a half, 2 hours tops.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to waste that long of my life for just this one thing. And so I do agree. Like, I think if there was a third wheel in that scenario, and to be honest, on his own right, I think that RFK probably would have been a particularly good one for it.
Yeah.
But even just any third wheel, there might have been some fucking, content.
Mm-hmm.
Actual content of this thing being and serving the purpose of what it's actually supposed to fucking be,
Right.
which is, a venue to listen to candidates talk about their positions on topics. But then at the same time, that's like literally not what politics is about anymore.
Yeah.
Like there's literally like a social stigma around having a belief in the democratic process of like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna listen to the candidates and like weigh my options, right? Like you're not even allowed to like say that now, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and like whatever, right? Like I don't really believe in that system in the first place, but it's quite interesting. So yeah, I agree with you there.
That's what I told my boss too. I told him, I was like, RFK, if he was on the stage, at least it would have been something. He would have offered a refreshing perspective, change of,
what did your boss say?
He just said, yeah, I definitely would have. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you think that the debate helps the RFK campaign?
I think it does. I don't know, man. I feel like he's lost a lot of steam recently, but I feel like this could help in a way. I feel like if they switch out Biden for some new guy, or if they run Biden either way, I think RFK has a legitimate inroad with Democratic voters after this emperor has no clothes on experience that he maybe didn't have before, because people were more confident with Joe Biden. They're not as anymore. And I think that if he smartly were to kind of lean on that, I think he could get a lot of people that are defectors to kind of come and vote for him. I think that if he used I think that the real debate live was kind of fucked, but I think if he clipped it out right and started putting up clips and reels and stuff in the right locations and using them as ads, he could make himself look really good with the real debate. I feel like have the moderators asking Trump or asking Biden a question, 30 seconds of that, then boom, pop RFK up, his answer, concise, down to 30, whatever. Short minute and a half clips like that, I think would be huge if you could get that going. And in kind of reframing the experience of the real debate in smaller, neater portions, I think would be pretty big for him. Because I don't think many people are like engaged enough politically to be like, I'm going to seek out an alternative debate option to find this guy. And now that the debate's already happened, if you didn't do that already, I don't feel like a lot of people are going back to watch him or whatever. So if he can put himself out like some recaps and clips and stuff, I think that would be helpful. I don't know that it's enough to do anything, but I think that he's likely the independent candidate with the best chance to like make statistically important numbers that we've had in recent years for sure.
Yeah.
So whatever that means. I mean, I still don't know if I'm going to vote or not. If I do vote, I will vote for RFK. Even though I don't like the Israel stuff, I don't like a bunch of stuff. I don't really trust him anymore, but I do like functionally like the idea of it being like, here's a third party coming in maybe this year when things are so fucking retarded with the Democrats and Trump is Trump and it's like whatever. And maybe this is a year where it's like RFK could pick up 26% of the election or whatever, and that might help carve out some new lane for independents. Or it might mean absolutely nothing, just like who is the guy? Some guy like Ross Perot or whatever.
Oh, yeah, dude, Ross Perot was based.
Yeah, but it's like ultimately it meant nothing. So it's like I don't know. I feel like I want to vote for him maybe symbolically on that and on the COVID thing, but then it's like part of me also wants to be like, listen, the electoral system is like at a level where people are losing significant faith in it. This might be a good year to just be like, yeah, I'm just definitely not going to fucking vote. Why would I? And add to like the wave of like maybe people just don't engage with it.
Totally.
Not that it matters.
I'll vote for Trump just because he's still just a fuck you candidate. And
yeah.
So it's like, yeah, fuck it. But yeah, I mean, it's as Reddit and boring as this is, it is just the classic, like nobody won last night. We all just lost. And like, there is something to that's true that you got to give the Redditors, but honestly, Reddit at this point is actually just kind of fully on the train of like, actually he did fine and shut the fuck up.
Really?
So that's yeah, and that's kind of strange because they're like, because like I don't really see anybody doing that otherwise.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh man, well, I think we've kind of ran the wheels off the debate topic. We've gotten what we can out of it. The only other thing, I had Ladybird written down. We kind of covered that, and then my final thing is kind of like a fun little topic. I guess we can close on. Have you seen or heard about this trend at all? It's this online trend. I've only seen reverberations of it, but of like
Changing
I think it's yeah, changing your gender and asking your parents to call you different pronouns. No, this trend. I think it's a TikTok trend or something of raw dogging flights. Have you heard of this at all? Has this come into your lexicon?
Raw dogging flights?
Like an airplane? Yeah.
No.
Okay, so all right. So there's this new trend that's like a couple people on like, I don't know, TikTok or some social media started it, and then it's kind of gone out from there. But it's some dude posted, he's like a photo of him on an airplane just looking straight ahead, and it was like just raw dogged a 9-hour flight, no headphones, no in-flight entertainment, no book, no water, just me and my thoughts. And that's like been like a big thing now. It's like people are like doing the same thing, like me just raw dogged a 6-hour flight, no in-flight entertainment, just me and the flight tracker. And so it's like this new trend of people being like, I'm going to go on the plane, I'm going to not listen to music, I'm going to be present in the moment, maybe engage with the people I'm riding on the plane with. It's almost like in a way like a return to tradition, but like in a post-ironic kind of sense, you know, where it's like, let's get back to when airplanes were great.
Well, I think I don't. Well, to be fair, I don't know how much of that is let's try to act like airplanes are great or anything.
No, it's definitely not.
I will say that I kind of naturally do that already. Now,
yeah.
I would never be caught dead raw dogging a flight because I do bring stuff to keep me occupied for sure, because I like really particularly can't stand flying. I really don't fucking like it. And honestly, one of the biggest things is I just really hate the airport. I think the airport is like the closest. How do I want to put this? The airport is like being a fucking like refugee being like cycled through like a detainment center, basically.
Yeah.
And the constant hand of just like state violence is just like constantly hovering over you. And it's like crazy how fucking intense that is in an airport,
Yeah.
and how everyone's just like, yeah, of course, duh.
It's like
right?
human cattle.
And no, and I really resent the how dehumanizing it is. I really don't like it. And it's this whole thing of basically just like, I feel like I'm being provoked the whole time I'm in the airport. And I feel like the whole game is basically just like, we're provoking you. And the second you react to that normally, like there is like a bottomless pit that you're now falling into.
Yeah.
Of just a pause put on basic human rights because you idiots still believe in that. And yeah, anyways, I really hate it. But when I'm actually like on the flight and everything, because I hate it so much, I have a hard time settling in and doing like escapism generally. And so I do tend to like let myself just fucking become grounded a bit and like actually embrace the current present moment when I'm on the flight, because I'm already so bound up. And so I'll do that. The last time I flew, when I was on my way there, it was a little different on the way back, but the last time I flew, I like sat next to like some kid that was like 22, like in the military, who was like married. And we like, we talked literally the entire flight.
Love that.
And I just kind of like made a buddy, just some very polite young gentleman from the South.
Nice.
And like me and my wife just talked with him basically the whole time. So that was an interesting example of like, I didn't do any reading. I didn't like play any vidya or anything like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I got a couple of things. For me, I totally understand where you're coming from with the airport experience. It feels like it's a monitored environment, and that on itself
it's disgusting.
Has like, it has an air of like, I think there's an uncomfortability where people feel it's like, if you're ever walking down the street or whatever and you feel like you're being looked at, or like, if someone's ever staring at you, you can feel like someone's staring at you. You're getting that at all times in the airport because there's cameras everywhere and stuff. So like there's some subconscious level of like resting anxiety that's just like, I'm in like I don't know if it's like, it's not a spectacle, but it's like a machine or something. I'm like inside of like this programming thing where it's like I'm kind of in, and I'm in a part of a flow of motion, and I'm just kind of moving in that, and it's like kind of contained, and it's almost like you're saying, like migrants moving through a detention center, or like pigs going through to slaughter, or like whatever it is. It feels like that very much. So I am like a weirdo. I like the airport, and I like planes, but mostly because of all the people.
You're fucking autistic.
Well, yeah, I do like the planes, looking at them and stuff, but more so I just get so caught up about just like it's bustling with life. Like it's if you can get past how sterile the environment is and how fucking like managed and watched over and like manipulated and stuff the environment it is, and how metal everything is and how fluorescent everything is, if you can get past that and you're just dealing with the people, it's bustling. It's so many people of all different kinds of people, and they're going, you can see it on their all different faces. Some of them are sad, some of them are happy, some of them are angry just being in the airport, some of them are annoyed, some are zoned out, some are on Xanax. It's such a myriad of different experiences happening around you in the same exact location. These people are sharing the same space as me, but having an entirely different experience because they're heading somewhere or coming from somewhere that was either exciting, sad, monotonous, who knows what. But there's a whole world in each individual, and I get so caught up in it every time I'm at the airport. I like just getting in there, and once I'm through all the security and shit, I hate that, obviously. I hate having to go through all that. But once I'm in there, there's a combination of like a feeling of completion. I'm like, oh, I've made it through all the bullshit. I'm at my fucking gate. I can just sit down. Or I'm like walking around. I can just kind of like walk around and chill. For the next hour and a half until the flight takes off, there's nothing for me to do except for be right here. I've got no responsibilities other than to get myself through that door. And that's a nice place to be. Like I find that when I'm at home and I have nothing going on, I get like compulsively I need to like work on the music. I need to work on sending emails. I need to do something that's like, it's like a compulsion towards productivity or whatever. And when I'm in the airport, I'm removed from that entirely because I don't have the things. So I'm like,
the choice is taken away.
Yeah, the choice is taken away. So it's almost like a forced moment of like, you're just here now. Enjoy the ride of just like, you're in the airport. You got an hour and a half of nothing. Either go and find like a drink and a bagel or something, or sit, whatever it is. It feels like almost like in the middle of all the hustle and bustle of the confusion of flight times and everyone heading everywhere. It feels like a moment of reprieve in the life where it's like, I'm here for the next 30 minutes to an hour and I've got to do nothing. And it's almost nice. And then you get on the flight and the flights are kind of scary. And I think that we probably shouldn't be on airplanes much because it's like I think there's a lot of radiation and shit. Like, I think it's probably not good. I'm anti-flight, but I love it. Like, I love being in the airport. I like to be on the flight because I'm looking around, I'm seeing everyone else's screen, what they're looking at, what they're watching on the.
Yeah, you're just like watching somebody's movie from
I'm just like
a few seats back.
Voyeuristic almost. I'm just like, what are they like? You know what I mean? Just like, and maybe
it's like a humanist's buffet of romantic stories. You can see what's that person doing over there. What's that? Who are they going to see? Like, who do they like enough to be hopping onto a flight and going to see? Why is that person sad? Why is that person happy? Like, I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying.
That's my thing. And I have a tendency to over romanticize shit anyhow. And so like, and I know that about myself. So there's moments where I let myself actually do it. And that's like one of the times because it helps to change my experience into a more positive one. Because when I'm first getting there, it's like, I'm afraid about flight times. I'm worried if I even packed everything I need. I'm like worried that maybe I have some sort of illegal item in my bag I forgot about, or like something, who knows. You never know. Like, I'm afraid maybe my shoes smell like bomb. You don't know.
Well, and to our point earlier, though, that having the enthusiasm and the romanticism is good, and that's something you should we should, as a general tool or a general rule, try to hang on to. I had, funny enough, an experience very much like what you kind of just described of being like, oh my gosh, did I forget something? When I was in Texas and there was some fucking drug sniffing dogs, just going at it, just running around, fucking sniffing shit out. And I had this moment of just being like, dude, like, did I leave some crumbs? You know what I mean? Cause it's like, I keep shit in my backpack for non-travel related stuff,
Right.
And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, I don't fucking know. There's a non-zero chance that I did, but also at the same time, I don't really know if like a couple crumbs would actually amount to anything. But
I think the dogs that are at the airport are for bombs, most of the time. And they're not searching for, TSA dogs are searching for bombs and explosive material, or possibly guns.
How awkward would it be if I, forgot to take the bomb out of my bag?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because I fly with weed pretty much every time. And so, but the first times I was doing it, it was like 2014. So this was like pre-weed being kind of like super legal everywhere. And I had weed on me and I was very scared because I was in the TSA line and they had a dog going up and down the row right next to me. And it just didn't smell anything or flag anything. And I was talking with someone I know that worked at the airport, and they were saying that the dogs at the TSA are just for bomb searching, and not for drugs.
Fascinating.
So it's something.
This person at TSA is just like, no, don't worry about it. I'll let you have this QP.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's kind of the unwritten rule with the TSA. Is that like they're not looking for drugs, like personal use drugs, but like if they see like a large quantity of drugs and it shows up on the scanner, they're like, all right, that's a problem. And they're looking for smuggling and stuff, but primarily they're looking for bombs and for like whatever. So if you have like I usually fly with like, I'll bring some edibles or like some carts that you put on a battery that's just like a vape or whatever, and I just throw it in my bag with my toiletries, or I'll bring just concentrate and I just put it in my bag with my toiletries and fly with it in the open in the carry-on, and no one's ever said anything.
That's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
That's so wow. I'm definitely not doing that. But you apparently love the airport, so
I'll stay there. Yeah, I'll hang out in the TSA room for a little extra couple hours.
It's gonna be the remake of The Terminal starring Tom Hanks, but it's just you living.
Me with like 4 crumbs of weed in my pocket, just like what, walking around.
All I need.
Well, one time I was flying and I had my audio interface and a couple like cords and wires wrapped around it and shoved into my backpack, and I didn't think about it, and I didn't take it out when we went through the scanner, and it went through and it looked like a bomb because it's just like a metal squared casing device with like some weird machinery in there, and then they just had random wires wrapped all around it, kind of haphazard. So
like that kid that brought the suitcase clock to school when Obama was in office.
Yeah, for literally like that. And
clock med.
It was kind of it was the whole thing. Like they pulled me aside. I had to go. They like took me to this little side examination cubicle thingy. And they took apart my whole bag. I explained. I was like, listen, I'm a musician. I flew back home from a gig, and I just brought it with me so I could practice and stuff. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're supposed to take it out, blah, blah, blah. And then they took these wipes and they wiped them all over my hands. And then they put it into some box, and then it like read whatever was on my hands. And I think they were looking for like, you know, bomb making shit. Yeah, like that. And obviously they didn't find any, so I got to go. But yeah, it was spooky. It was like, that was the closest I've had to actual problems with TSA.
Huh.
I felt like a dumbass too.
Dude, they took that wipe and they made like a bunch of fucking clones of you somewhere.
Yeah, they got my DNA, dude. Who knows? The wipes might be endocrine disruptors too, probably. Like fucking receipt paper.
I'm sorry, bro. You're gay now.
Yeah, I'm finished, dude.
It's over for you, dude. And Pride Month just ended. Exactly.
Sorry. That's Biden from the last debate.
All right, I gotta call it here. I'm getting fucking toasty here.
All right, I'll go ahead and sign us off.
Yeah.
He's such a